up, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Unofficial PlayStation Plus podcast, your monthly slice for all things PlayStation news. News, reviews, reactions, opinions, we got them all. Eventually, we'll talk with that in a bit. But before we get to all that, I'm your host, Vincent Kenny, and joining me on this episode is returning guest, Mr. Hunter Gerace.
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 You're close.
God, I literally looked at it 5 minutes ago.
Everyone gets it wrong, dude. Trust me, it's all good.
Eventually, one day I will try it. I'm gonna do this enough times. But yes,
Yeah.
he's here to talk PlayStation Plus games for the month of February 2022. But before we get into all that, how are you doing today, sir? Aside from the fact that I butchered your name.
I'm doing all right. How about yourself? Thanks for having me back, by the way.
Oh, you are a fun time. Because what is it? The last time we did Concrete Genie and all that, and it's been fun watching you be the one person upset about Kojima taking their spot.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird sequence of events that happened.
But yeah, so like I said, we're here to talk to PlayStation Plus games before February. But as we do with every pre-show, it's been a while. Well, let's start there. So the super short brief thing is, it is of course April, and I'm recording the February episode, and that's simply because life gets in the way sometimes. So all through the month of February and March, I was dealing with getting a new car because the brakes on my old one exploded. So
Jeez.
Yeah, so literally in the span of a week and a half, I went from having no car, having to Uber everywhere, to finding a new car, buying it, and getting like the insurance and everything set up.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
Yep, it was definitely stressful. It was definitely upsetting. It's, the rough part is done now. That's why I'm trying to do this catch up. And the only other thing is that I apologize if my voice is like kind of raspily or kind of scratchy. I am coming off the end of like a COVID quarantine thing, so I'm
That's
fine.
all good.
Yeah, like, the first few days were rough. I'm over the tough part now, so now it's just the last few days of getting over it. But yeah, so if you hear me like choking or scratching or whatever, it's fine. I'm not dying for the most part. But so like I said, before we go into the gaming stuff, what kind of non-gaming stuff has been catching your attention lately? Just because I know you are a big affinity for animation and TV animation for all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I haven't really been watching stuff. I think the last
I know that's
animated
a
show,
lot, but
like, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say because I see your timeline, so it is constant Owl House spoilers.
Well, see that's the thing. So I watch every weekend right now. It's Owl House and Amphibia. They're back on Disney Channel. They're airing back to back. But in terms of like shows that I'm binging, I haven't seen, like, the last one I finished I think was Kid Cosmic, and that came out back in like February or something.
Go off that.
So
yeah.
it's been a while. I know right now I'm working on Close Enough. I'm just getting through season 3 of that, and then.
I was gonna say season 3 is the one that just dropped, right?
Yeah, it came out like I think last week.
Oh, okay, yes. Because I was gonna say I loved season 1 and I loved season 2. I just have a love-hate with that show because I relate to the show so much, and I don't like that I relate to it. Because you look at episodes from regular show, and it was just like really dumb stuff, like getting sucked into a video game and all this other stuff. Close Enough is like, oh no, the child is like learning English and they can like spell your swears, or like having to deal taxes, or dealing like, I think there was the one episode in season 1 where they got kicked out of the bar because they were like 32 or something.
Oh yeah, because they were like, it was like a young person bar or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And like he was like, oh, I'll catch you on the Facebook, and they're just like, boomer. Meanwhile, I use Facebook daily, so.
Yeah, that show's great. It's a good show.
No, because like I said, the big thing I personally know you for all the animation stuff. So I know that obviously we're upset with the way the Oscars and everything went with Encanto and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I personally enjoyed Encanto. It's just that it's the way that they kind of treated animation as a whole
Yep.
for the Oscars. I'm like, yeah, everyone was pissed off about that.
Yeah. Because what is it? I believe even though they didn't win, what was it? Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they did like a whole letter just saying like, hey, we're fine losing to Encanto, but we don't appreciate the way that the Academy is still treating animation and all the other stuff.
Yeah, because I think what happened was I didn't watch the show as a whole. I just saw the clip. But when they were presenting the award, it was like they had like all the live action Disney princesses come up on stage, like the actors or the actresses or whatever,
Gotcha.
and they're all like, yeah, animation is a good way for parents to distract their kids or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's no, that's
So they treated it like it was a kids thing. It's like, okay, well, you know what, do whatever you want to say, I guess.
oh yeah, and we even talked about this personally, but like I said, I think the main thing is that with a lot of other films, like, and I mean this in a positive way, when you look at the Oscars, a lot of the time it's like, oh, I've never heard of this film or this film, or like they really do go to some very unique niche places of like interesting films that they choose for best pictures. But then when you look at like the animated section, it's pretty much just like, okay, what big name, like what was the DreamWorks film, what was the Pixar film, what was the Illumination film, like they kind of just do whatever was released that year. Uh,
Yeah.
and I feel like it'd be a lot better. Like as cringe as it sounds, I feel like they really should include a lot more anime, like especially stuff like Belle, where like I didn't hear Belle was amazing, but it was still really good. Like it definitely should have been there.
Yeah, I went to go see Belle with my brother, and he liked it more than I did. I thought it was fine. I
Hmm.
mean, I have nothing against anime or anything. I think it should be nominated though, at least for
Just
like
variety.
soundtrack.
Yeah, just it
Well,
just
yeah,
yeah, because I think there is that notion of like just kind of because what was it? I'm trying to find it now. Because there was even the what was it? The one lone one was some documentary animation thing.
yeah. They usually get like an independent or like a foreign animated film, and then whatever like the 2 or 3 Disney films that come out that year.
I'm trying to. Yeah, here, give me a second. I'm trying to see. Raya, Luca, Flea. That's what it was. Yeah. So no, but that's my. Whoop. As I kick my headphones out of my ear. Um, but no, that's the thing for me is I feel like right now it is funny that everyone else is having this whole argument about the Oscars itself being like, oh, they should do this and that, but meanwhile, I'm just focused on the animation. But no, I feel like that again, that's the problem is you have Disney, whatever everyone else did, and then one random foreign film, just like, oh, this is a diversity pick. And personally, I feel like as long as they keep that platform in place, like Disney's just gonna win every year. Like I don't really see many other films competing with Disney in terms of that space.
Well, see, and that's it. Just honestly, at this point, it depends on how good of a year Disney has because we had that one year where I think Spider Verse won, but I don't remember what Disney had on their plate that year. I think it was like Incredibles 2 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Oscar win. Yeah, because what was it? Because that's so it was Ralph Break the Internet, Mirai, Spider Verse, Incredibles 2, and Island of Dogs,
Oh, okay.
which is
Yeah. So
actually
Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Those aren't
yeah,
that great. I'm surprised Isle of Dogs didn't get it though, because I
yeah,
know that one's what's his name? I forget the guy
Wes
who made
Anderson.
it, but yeah, yeah, Henderson.
But yeah, no, that's the interesting thing watching. What was it? Because yeah, again, it is weird just saying like even just saying like, oh, you're a fan of animation because I don't know. For me, it feels like one of those things. Like even bringing anime into it a bit, saying you're an anime fan, like sure, there's a certain stigma with it, but for the most part, I feel like most people are going to be okay with if I tell someone, hey, I'm watching the new season of Demon Slayer. I'm watching the new Attack on Titan, whatever. No one's gonna turn an eye. But the amount of people I've had just go like, where I've been like, oh, I'm watching Kipo, I'm watching She-Ra, I'm watching all this other stuff. Like, I do feel there's this weird stigma still on the West where they're like, okay, cool, and like, yeah, it's an animated film and it's good, but it's like there's still that weird stigma of like trying to kind of just keep it in this weird box.
Yeah, it's this weird hypocrisy. I keep telling this to people, but it's like people judge you for watching something that's animated that isn't Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But when the new Disney movie comes out, they'll always like, oh my gosh, this is the animation that's for everybody, you know?
Well, it's not even that. It's just the fact that, like you said, they're fine with Disney, but when it's anything else, because like you said, like you were saying before, Kid Cosmic seems cool. Kid Cosmic is on my list. Netflix does a lot of great stuff. Like what was it? You know, they do they do the Hollow. They do again, obviously all
Yeah,
the DreamWorks
yeah, it's
stuff.
all like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was it? Hilda. Like there are a lot of great animated shows that aren't like, because you know, like there's certain shows like what is it, like Adventure Time or things of that, where like it is like, okay, this show, or even like some of the Disney Marvel shows where I'm like, okay, cool, this isn't the greatest thing ever, this is just fluff, but like I do feel a lot of people are missing out on some genuinely great shows on Netflix and places of that just because it is animated.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like I think nostalgia has a factor into it too because when I was telling people like oh, you should really watch She-Ra. It's like no, the last show I watched was Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm like,
Yeah, see,
then you will definitely like She-Ra because it's basically the same thing.
no, yeah, especially because that's a weird thing is like, again, like and that's just what makes me, I don't know, have this weird upsetness. It's just the fact that like people will watch very mundane slice of life anime stuff, you know, stuff like that. They're all fine with that, but it's just the fact that for some reason, it's just the second it's a Western show, like it doesn't matter the plot or the anything or whatever. Because again, excuse me. Obviously, I know it's very popular online, but I still feel there is that weird stigma, even in terms of stuff like you said with the Owl House, and like for me personally with Gravity Falls, where I really love that show, and they're like, "Oh, it's really good for a kid show," and it's just that weird stigma of like, "No, it's not a kid show. It's really messed up."
And again, like the whole thing with like being nostalgic about it. I even tell people I'm like, you like Gravity Falls, right? So there's people that were on the Gravity Falls team that made and they split up into like Owl House and Amphibia. So you should be watching those because it's basically the same people, but no one really looks at them.
Yep. So yeah, that that's just gonna be my little mini rant. It's just especially on Netflix. There's so many. Yeah, sorry, because see, the problem is like there's a lot of cool stuff like what was it, the Midnight Gospel and Arcane and all this other stuff, and like there's plenty of adult animated show, or sorry, yeah, adult animated shows. Um, but I do think like limiting yourself to just, oh, it has to be an R-rated, you know, oh, this is the mature, this is an adult show. Oh, look what this show is doing. Like again,
Like a
stuff
big mouth kind of thing.
exactly. Like that's what's
Yeah.
like there are shows that yeah, because again, I'm going back to Hilda. That is a super just it's very chill and calm and this other stuff, and the amount of people or it's like who I've just been like, because I told people I'm like, oh, what are you watching right now? I'm like, oh, Hilda. And they're like, with your stepdaughter? I'm like, no, this is just for me. Like I enjoy it. Like I do think there are. I guess the main thing is just kind of being able to detach and not have that notion of like, oh, this is for children.
Yeah, and I mean the people that make you got to keep in mind like the people that make these cartoons, they're adults. I mean, they're not making them specifically for kids unless, it's like a Disney Junior program or something.
Sorry, it's just funny because I literally typed Netflix animated shows, and the first three results are Arcane, Attack on Titan, and Inside Job. And like
Oh my god.
it's like I've heard good things about Inside Job. I've heard stuff about what is it, Disenchantment. But like that's the weird thing is it's trying to find that specific
The
niche.
adult shows.
Well, not even that. Like trying to find the kid shows that are actually good. What was it? Yeah, because even what was it with us with Tales of Arcadia. That is one that Netflix did, and I think that's a perfect example of
That's a fantastic show, yeah.
like
Absolutely.
there's that there's the I don't even know how to describe it. Basically, it just gives you this weird nostalgia of being like 12, where you're like, okay, this show isn't the greatest thing ever. It's not like Shakespeare, and it's not this fantastic 10 out of thing. Like it's just, but you're a done 10-year-old and you just watched whatever, if it was the Men in Black show or Static Shock or like whatever was on TV, you watched it. And it wasn't good, but you still enjoyed it. And like a lot of these shows are very similar in that way where was it? Yeah, because again with what was it? Like yeah, Dragon Prince, Dragon Prince, Sierra, The Dark Crystal, Hollow 7, like that's the weird thing is I would never say any of these are like, oh my god, these are 10 out of 10. These are like hidden classics. But I don't think they're really good shows. I really do think they are doing unique and interesting stuff. And I do think they are undervalued a bit just because of this weird specific stigma that I think people still have.
Yeah, I think people need to move away from like because there's that phrase that like animation isn't a genre, it's a medium.
Hmm.
You have to like realize that like you can tell stories differently through animation than you can through live action. That's why people always criticize like the live action Disney remakes because they're not animated, so you can't really match that same magic.
No, yeah, and that should be the what was it like oh god, I'm trying to see. I don't want to steal this quote, and I'm gonna butcher it. I believe, but there's a okay. I'll just say an animation legend because I don't want to say his specific name. But basically, he's saying like if you can watch an animated show with the sound off and still or sorry, without looking at it and still understand what's going on, then it's not a good animated show. And I do feel there is like a lot of shows what was it like even like what was it Captain Planet, like Voltron. There's a lot of these shows that actually have really good animation, and it's not just the jokes and the storytelling. It is the action and the visuals and the set pieces and the worlds. And like I do feel, yeah, again, like there's a lot of it's more than just the story it's trying to tell. It's them taking advantage of the fact that it is animated and it can do those squatch and stretch and all those other things.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's move on from that passion animation rant to the Plus games for February 2022. The first one was Planet Coaster, console edition, and it was created by Frontier Digitals and first released on November 12th, 2020. It has a Metacritic score of 81%, although the PS4 version has 79%. And there was no exact sale numbers, but as of January 2020, it sold 2.5 million copies just on PC alone. So I actually believe you played this game too.
Oh yeah, I definitely played this one.
Yes, because you were actually like really big into the theme park and kind of simulation stuff.
Yeah. First of all, I think we should note that I think this one on the PlayStation Plus lineup, I think this was only the PS5 version.
Yes.
I don't know if they give you. Okay.
No, yeah, and the weird thing is there is a PS4 upgrade. So like if you buy the PS4, you get the PS5 version for free. So I don't know why they
Yeah,
did
I
it
don't.
like
I don't
this.
understand it either.
Yeah, it's just one of those. I guess they're assuming if you had the PS5, you wouldn't. I think this was just like a case of like, hey, they needed a PS5 game. But yeah, it is still weird that again, if you buy the PS4 version, you get the PS5 for free. But it is what it
Yeah,
is.
it's weird. It is weird. I know this was a launch title for the PS5 too, so I don't know
Yeah,
if that has anything to do with
it could
their
be that.
decision on that. Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, because
So oh, go ahead.
no, because I was just gonna say, because me personally, real briefly, I love um theme park games, and then like I've been trying to get back in, but like the biggest problem for me is like just there are so many different ones now where um I'm just very simplistic, and I just want to make roller coasters and watch like the park grow.
Sure.
Like I don't
Yeah,
need
no,
anything fancy.
yeah. So usually, what I tell people with Planet Coaster is, first of all, like, did you grow up with? I'm sure you've heard of Roller Coaster Tycoon, right? Okay, so we got Roller Coaster Tycoon, and then we got Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Now, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was made by Frontier Developments, the same team,
Oh, okay.
and they published it under Atari, I think, because they had the rights at the time.
Hmm.
And then from there, Frontier also went on to do Thrillville under LucasArts.
Did they? Okay, I remember like tweeting
Yeah.
that at you, and I thought I was just a joke. I didn't know this was the same people.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, and it gets better too because they eventually went to Microsoft and they did Scream Ride, which I've played. That's more of like an arcade kind of roller coaster game, which is fun.
Hmm.
That one's only on Xbox though. And they did the Zoo Tycoon reboot, which I haven't played. I heard wasn't that good.
Hmm.
And then they also did Disneyland Adventures,
The
which
Connect
isn't
game?
it. Yeah, it's not like a theme park management game, but when you play it, it's like a really incredible recreation of the park. And
Oh
I've been
yeah,
to the
because
park so many times, it's insane. It's almost identical to it.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I do remember a lot of people when the pandemic first started of doing like streams where they would just walk around the park and like they wouldn't really like it wasn't about playing the game. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to Disneyland, and like they would spend their day in the Disneyland like game because it was that close to how the actual park was. Like even down stuff to like the trash can placements and all that other stuff.
Yeah, like the trash cans and like the sounds and stuff and everything's there. So what I'm basically trying to say is Frontier is like really good with theme park games.
Hmm.
And so Planet Coaster, from what I remember, because it was launched on PC like a long time ago, uh, it was it was like a Kickstarter. I think it was like a spiritual successor to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Um, and I think it came out around the same time as Roller Coaster Tycoon World 2,
Hmm.
which wasn't that great, and it boosted Planet Coaster sales even further. But Planet Coaster, it's a fantastic game. I think it's a great follow up to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. It's got like the
Hmm.
nostalgic soundtrack. It's got the charming character models. It's just got everything. It's really good. And then I think the translation to consoles too is it's
Hmm.
not too complicated, like control wise, but it's still just the job done. It gets the job done. It's really good, and yeah, it's a good version of the game, I think.
Yeah, because what was it? Because the one thing that I always find interesting with theme park games is like it's one of those things of like on a base level, it's like all right, you're just menuing, you're managing menus, um, but like how much kind of creativity do they let you actually have in terms of like building your park? Because I watch a little bit and like you can kind of scale and like watch and like size certain buildings. But
Yeah,
like like how much like can you like do a unique theme, or like is it kind of just like preset stock um like items? Because that's always been my problem is like I will try and build, like I'm a freaking nerd, so I'll be like, oh, I want to make Nintendo Land, or like I want to make Disneyland, or this all this other stuff. But you just have just random rides like, oh, this is the pirate ride, this is the cowboy ride, this is the like the monster ride, and like the themes like never really mesh together. It just feels like you're kind of stapling stuff together to get it to work.
right. So like obviously, if you're playing the PC version, you can have those modded assets, and you can import whatever you want. Um, on the console version, they have a marketplace
Oh,
where
that's
you
cool.
can I mean you could like find people that make like like decent recreations of like Disneyland and like all like a bunch of different parks and stuff. So there's that. But the game itself, in terms of customization, I think like at least compared to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, even like the objectives themselves, it has a lot of focus on customizing the park itself too, because you even have I think down to like there's objectives where it's like you have a rating that is affected by the scenery and the placement of the scenery. So it's really it's insane how deep it gets, but um, there's a lot you can customize, especially compared to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. There's a lot more um, flexibility to this one.
Yeah, because like that's like I said, that's the thing for me is I know what was it because they were saying something like that you have the like you said the story mode and you have a more kind of long term, but I do appreciate the fact that these games just have the free mode and all this other stuff of
Yeah, there's like a sandbox mode. I think there's even a challenge mode too if you want to do challenges.
exactly. So like it's one of those things like I don't much like golf games. I just have this weird obsession where like I don't know what it is. I just love building a park and and just watching it. Like I don't have to do anything with it. It's just I guess for me it's just the journey of slowly unlocking the different rides and all this other stuff. Like I don't know what it is. It's just there is a weird funness specifically to running an amusement park, and I can't describe why other than just the fact that you look at stuff like Disney, like you said, like Disneyland Adventure and all this other stuff, like the amount of time and effort and stuff that goes into park design, I think is like kind of just a unappreciated field for me.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a fascinating subject, and you go on YouTube and you see the parks that people create, and it's insane.
um, what was it? Yeah, I found on it slightly tangentially, but I found this dude the other day who his whole channel is just city skyline stuff, and he just does the randomest. He's like, oh, I'm gonna build a city at like 10,000 feet. All right, now I'm gonna build it at like 1,500 feet below the seaboard. Now like it's surrounded by water. Like it's just kind of cool to see all the different little ways you can limit and challenge yourself, and how like at the end of the day, like it's really just comes down to how much time you want to put into your park and how much time you want to do with all the little, you could just leave the park on auto run and just watch it do that, or like you could really get into the micro level of. I don't know how the civilians work in this game, but I know in certain games, like you can literally go down to a person by person level and like see them ride the rides and like experience their day with them.
Yeah, you could do that in this one too. Like I said, it's basically it's Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 but better. When you play like that campaign mode or whatever, and you have those challenges, you definitely need to read like the guest thoughts and stuff, and like hear what their opinions are, and you can like adjust stuff from the park.
Okay,
You definitely need to read all that stuff.
that's awesome. So, any last minute thoughts before we move on to the next game?
No, I mean it. Honestly, if you have a good PC, definitely play it on PC first. If not, you can play it on consoles. I believe this game actually supports keyboard and mouse on consoles.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so I think it's one of those few games that supports it. But yeah, Planet Coaster is fantastic.
So moving on from that, our next game was EA UFC 4, created by EA Vancouver and released on the PlayStation 4 on August 14th, 2020. It has a Metacritic score of 78%. And there's no exact sales numbers, but it launched at number one on the UK charts for retail sales in its first week, but its sales were down 47% compared to the launch of its predecessor. And it is worth noting that the UK charts obviously don't include digital sales, so its true performance may be impossible to fully judge. So this is a game that I actually played begrudgingly, but I'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, this is why I don't talk sports games, but it's perfectly okay. Like, I I do enjoy sports games every couple of years. Like every now and again, I'll pop into Madden, I'll pop into NHL. I'm just like, okay, well, like I haven't played this game in 2 3 years. What's going on? All right, cool. This is still football. This is still hockey. Like, it's really hard to do on a year by year basis of like, oh, this tiny minute thing is better than this. So that's why I don't really get them yearly. But like, I do enjoy a good sports game when they're well made. And this game, like it has the polish, it has the attention. I guess the only thing for me is because I'm a dumb fighting game fan, I try to like button mash my way through this, and I was actually kind of surprised because you can't do that. The way it works is it's less about doing damage and it's more about slowly wearing your opponent down and kind of draining their energy. So like your health bar is actually interesting because your initial health bar is the stamina bar, and then once that whittles down, then you can actually do damage. So I was at first I was literally just doing matches where I'd like punch, 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 and I wouldn't do any damage, and then I would just get destroyed. And apparently, like the way the game they want you to play it is to do these kind of slowly, punch back away, and slowly chip like over the course of 3 4 minutes, slowly wear your opponent down where they're making more mistakes, they're making more moves, and it's very interesting how I think on many levels they could have just done a simple fighting game of just all right, punch, 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 he's dead. But I do kind of appreciate how they incorporated the stamina into it, and you can't just wail on someone until they're down. You have to wait for the right moment and position and all this other stuff. And I can't speak to the rest of the game because there's what was it? The character creator is very interesting because they'll let you make a character, but you can't. For some reason, you can choose their first name, but not their last name. They'll just give it.
Is the last name just generated?
Yeah, exactly.
That's weird.
Like you can go.
It's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, exactly, and like you can kind of customize the features and all this other stuff. So like, I literally just did like the preset. For stuff like this, I just usually go with whatever the default. But like, it looked close enough like me. Like I really only pressed like 2 or 3 presets, and it kind of got close enough. And the fact that they do let you customize and do this other stuff. I don't know. I do like the fact that what was it? They even let you basically do this tournament, like this fight night matchup thing, where basically like you can choose how many. Kind of like a real UFC fight. You'll have the big title card match, and then you can have a bunch of little matches beforehand. And it was cool. Where like literally like from main menu to the tournament mode, I was in there and I was doing matches in like 3 minutes. And it's cool when I was playing all these people. Is it just as someone who is not like an active UFC watcher, I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know how. Like they could all be fake. They could all be real. I didn't because even with wrestling, it's like, oh, there's Undertaker. There's John Cena. I know those people. Like with this, it was just like Sarah Brown or stuff like this, and I was just like, I assume this is a real person, and I should be impressed, but I don't have any. But yeah, aside from that, it's one of those things like, I don't think I'm gonna go back to this game anytime soon, but I do it did make me appreciate, what is it? How it did make me appreciate this game a bit more, and I do like the way EA has done the UFC games, where again it isn't yearly. I think it's bi-yearly or whatever. But I do appreciate the fact that their main focus is just, hey, we'll do a good UFC game when we have it, and then aside from that, we're just gonna update and support. And I kind of really think that's how most of the sports games should be.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't play sports games that often. I think the last one I played was some MLB The Show game. It must have been a while ago, but I'm surprised these games, like these companies, don't make them live services. I mean, I get that they want to sell a new SKU every year, but like, dude, they gotta make these live service at some point because they'll keep updating the rosters and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I know some people have said like, oh, sometimes they're contractually obligated to do like a new box each year, and that's part of it. But yeah, like that's it's so weird with so many games doing the whole live service things that this because I wouldn't even mind if it was like you buy the box, the game once or whatever, and then each
Hmm.
season you have to, let's say, the roster update where you want this year's athletes or this year's people, that you have to pay whatever the 30 or 40 insane stuff they want from you. Even that I would be okay with. But the fact
Yeah,
that
they must. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's just the fact that they're making people buy a brand new $60 to $70 game every single year. Like even if it was just a $30 to $40 fee, which is a lot for DLC, but even if that was yearly, that's still more understandable than expecting these games to do that much.
Yeah, I think these publishers they're doing the math somewhere, and it's probably not adding up because like I mean, there's other ways you can monetize it too. Because I know like MLB The Show, they have that currency in game that you can buy.
Hmm.
So there's got to be a way you can monetize it. And again, I get that they want to sell like a new SKU every year, and
Hmm.
that's totally understandable. But like, it's just it breaks the design a bit. I think.
Yeah, because that's the main thing for me is like I have no issue with the with people rebuying that. Like, that's one of those things where, like, I just feel like you could make so much easy money of, like, hey, here's the team's, like 2000s jersey. Here's their away. Like, there's definitely ways you could nickel and dime people. And I understand some people are upset. Like, no, 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 everything should be free. And for the thing for me is, like, look, these companies, at the end of the day, they want to make money. They want to make their profit. I understand that. But for me, I feel like there has to be better ways of doing it as a live service, and it just sucks because like if I only had to buy a sports game once per year or once every couple of years, that'd be totally fine. But like even me when I do that myself personally, I do know I'm missing a lot of features and I have to like it just sucks that they're what was it that this is that's the kind of reality of the situation. And hope it's just one of those things. I would say hopefully, but we'll see where the future goes. Like you look at stuff like the fact that was it MLB The Show is now on Xbox and Switch and Game Pass. So like hopefully that means these like sports games are gonna get updated. It is just a weird thing of like the fact we're in 2022 and sports games just still have this very weirdly archaic model.
Yeah, it's just again, it's weird from a design standpoint because you're basically developing the same game, and then you're like adding a feature, you're taking a feature out. It's like
Yeah,
what's the point of it, you know?
well, yeah, because apparently a lot of those teams get like insanely small dev times. They get like pretty much like 9 months between versions, where
Well, yeah,
some.
it's annualized, so that's all the time they get.
So it's
So,
one of those things that like because I've heard stories of like them cutting something from like 2013, and they're like, okay, well we can't put it in 13, but we'll put it in 15, and just the fact that I think um and obviously we'll have to see what happens long term, but like you look at the recent success of what was it, WWE two or yeah 2K22,
yeah, I
the
think it must have been the recent one, yeah.
WWE. Yeah, but that's a bit yes, it's 22. Uh, it has been getting like glowing reviews, and people are like really saying like how great it's been. But that's only because 21 had such a disastrous launch, and they took the year off, and they gave him that space, and like the new developers had the time to come in. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so I'm genuinely curious to see like how these sports games would function if there wasn't that pressure to do a new one. And like I said, and that's the thing with the EA games. UFC 3. Yeah, because UFC was 2017, and then 2 was whoop. They gave me the for the actual UFC.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah. So 2015. So like so with the EA UFC games, they're getting it seems to be like 2-3 years um, gap to make the games good. And so it just I don't understand why the other sports games can't follow that trajectory.
yeah. I don't. Especially with like EA and there's. I think all these sports games show up on EA Play anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever that service is called. I think it's EA
Yeah.
Play.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then what was it? I think obviously yeah, and then obviously because EA plays included in
Game Pass.
exactly. So many people are getting to play these games. It is just weird that what is it? I do have to wonder how many people have like just been waiting for it to come to Game Pass and do that other stuff, and then like if it even makes sense to do the full thing anymore. If people are just waiting that much.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see, and then we'll move on to our last game for the month. Speaking of people waiting on a game, it's Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, a Borderlands one-shot adventure. It was created by Gearbox Software and first released standalone on November 9th, 2021. And no exact Metacritic score, but on 360, the DLC got an 86. And I couldn't find any exact sales numbers. But according to the Steam database, they had a peak user of 167 players.
Damn.
Now, I will say this is just for the standalone Steam PC port, so.
That's understandable. Yeah. I get it.
Exactly, like, but yeah, so we can get into the game itself real quick, but the reason I played UFC was originally I was planning to play Tiny Tina because it was only like I believe it's only 4 or 5 hours. It's a very small game.
Yeah.
For some reason, my PS4 did not want to download this game because I usually, whenever I have to do stuff, download big games like this, I'll put it, I'll download it, I'll put it in rest mode, and I'll come back the next morning, and I'll be like, all right, cool, is it done downloading? I don't know what it is. My PlayStation did not want to play this game because I downloaded it literally 4 times. It would get to like 11 out of 13 gigabytes, and then it would just crash and crash and crash. So like, I deleted it, I started from scratch, I turned off rest mode, and I just like left it on. Like, I don't know what happened. But this game did not want to work for me, so unfortunately, I really want to play this game because it looks cool. It looks really interesting, but my PlayStation wouldn't let me.
That is so weird.
Yeah, I don't like.
That's weird.
Yeah, because even what was it after it? I downloaded the March and April games, and like I have, what was it, Team Sonic Racing on there. But for some reason, just Borderlands was the one that just the download was corrupted, and it wouldn't do it.
That is weird.
But yeah, because what was it? Because I've played a little bit. I used to play pre-sequel with some friends, and I definitely enjoy what was it? I'm okay with the Borderland humor. I know there are some people who have definitely turned against it and gone like, oh, it's too juvenile, it's too silly, it's too trivial. And there's definitely a few parts that make me groan. But I still do. It makes me chuckle every now and again. And especially with was it Tiny Tina's Wonderland coming out, I was really interested to check out this DLC.
Yeah, I mean, this package itself is a really interesting release.
Yeah, because
Oh, go ahead.
originally, no, I was just gonna say originally this was part of what was it, Borderlands 2 DLC rollout. So this
Yeah,
was just like it was a small chunk of the larger season pass.
it's DLC from 2013, and they repackaged it to advertise Wonderlands.
But yeah,
But what's interesting is that I think this came out like I don't know back in December or something because I remember it being a weird thing where like I think it was free on the Epic Game Store and then they announced it for PlayStation and then I was telling everyone like it's weird because if you go on PSN profiles, there's a platinum trophy for this, which wasn't even included in the DLC. So I kept telling people, I'm like, hey, look, there's a new game, a new platinum trophy you can get. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's literally just a repackage of the DLC. One of the more notable things about it though is that like when you played the DLC in Borderlands 2, you would
Hmm.
actually transfer your character over, so all of their like leveling and stats would carry over. But with this DLC, you can't transfer anything, so you start out
Yeah.
at level 1,
Hmm.
and then once you level up like really quick.
Hmm.
So that it's one thing that's kind of like interesting with this, but it's the same DLC. I mean, I personally think it's fantastic.
And
Um,
well, because I do remember a lot of people got upset a while ago. Um, what was it with Gat Out of Hell, where that also was basically just a DLC that they kind of took and made it its own thing. So
yeah, the Saints Row one, yeah.
yeah, so the thing for me is like, is there enough? Obviously, it is a smaller game. Again, like I said, it's only 3 to 6 hours. But like, is there enough kind of side missions and like side things to do, or is it just very much like, hey, you're going through the story missions and then that's it?
Oh no, there's plenty of. I think this game, to best describe it, it's quality over quantity. I think um, there's not too many side missions, at least compared to like Borderlands 3, and even I'm playing Wonderlands right now, and there's a lot more in that game. But um, yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect for a DLC kind of length
Yeah,
thing. There's
yeah,
like I think there's like 6 main missions, and there's at least like 20 side missions,
and
something around that.
yeah. So that's the weird um, give and take I have with this specific game, where I know a lot of people were upset again that quote unquote that it wasn't a full fledged game, that they were just offering DLC. And the thing for me is like, I feel like if the game itself is good, that's kind of irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter how big it like each month's games are if the actual game is good. So like well, especially because I believe you've also played was it Tiny Tina's as well.
Yeah, I'm playing it right now. Actually, I haven't like
Yeah.
finished it. I'm only a few hours in, but
Well,
um,
the thing I was just gonna ask is like, in comparing the two, like the two things for me is like, how obviously I just because I don't play the main, what was it? I haven't played the mainline ones. I believe this is the introduction of the whole bunkers and badass stuff. Like, I don't think it was in the main games before, was it?
no. Okay, so okay, full disclaimer is I've played all the Borderlands games up until Wonderlands.
Yeah.
Um, so this DLC, and I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't played Borderlands 2 yet, but this takes place after Borderlands 2. Um, and it's Tiny Tina. Yeah, it's the first time they introduce bunkers and badasses,
Yeah.
and
So I do think that's like kind of cool. The fact that like obviously the two are not super related, but like, do you get like kind of a nice lead into Wonderlands playing this game, or is like, is it just kind of superficial? Like, how kind
yeah,
of
I mean
close are the two?
it's a nice lead-in. I mean the whole gimmick around Assault on Dragon Keep and why it was so special at the time when it came out. Um, it's the fact that it's like you're literally just listening to Tiny Tina narrate a D&D session, and then whatever she changes on the board changes inside the game world.
Oh, that's cool.
And um, it's like there's one part at the beginning where she's like, "Yeah, you're gonna fight this giant dragon." And it's like, "Oh wait, you're too underpowered for that. So here's a skeleton army." And then it changes into like a skeleton army or something like that. So it's it's kind of like that. I know the DLC has a lot of like, um, it's Borderlands 2 humor, and I know it's a lot different than Borderlands 3 humor, which not many people hate. Not many people liked.
Yeah, they're
Um, but the DLC it makes fun of stuff like Skyrim and like a bunch of open world RPGs at that time, which I find it really fun.
yeah, because like I said, obviously, if you have the chance now, I would probably, I assume, just go play Wonderlands. That's probably, it's more bigger. It's got more stuff to do. But again, I do think this is like, it works well as a, like you said, like as a palette, as a, oh, like a entree, excuse me, to the actual game. Because like,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, because from what I've been, it wasn't until I went back and I did this research where I'm just like, oh, they literally just made this game this DLC into a whole game. Because obviously I'm sure there's like new mechanics and all this other stuff, but like the core idea of Tina playing the board game, telling like bringing the shooter elements to the fantasy setting, like all the core basics of Wonderland is in this DLC. So
That's correct. Yeah.
so I do feel like this is a very good kind of test bed for someone who, if you aren't sure about, if you've never played a Borderlands game before and you don't know if you liked the new Wonderland game, I do feel like this would be like a quick, hey, it's 6 hours, here's a quick taste, and like if you enjoy this, then go buy the real game.
Exactly. And I think the only reason I disagree with you as like an entry standpoint for this is that it spoils a certain twist that happens in the story of Borderlands 2. But I mean, if you don't care about Borderlands 2, you can still play it and kind of appreciate what's going on.
Okay, yeah, see,
But
that's the only thing is, like I said, is that was it, again, that I've played the, what was it? I played a bit of the pre-sequel, and then like I played one way back in the day. But yeah, it is very interesting that, because from what I guess this is a light spoilers, but like apparently the whole bunker and badass stuff, like there's a whole messed up story and like background lore for why like all of this is actually happening.
yeah, I mean, I won't spoil if no one's played Borderlands 2 yet for some reason, but
Yeah.
there's a certain character that dies in Borderlands 2, and that kind of affects Tina in this one, and then it turns into like a whole like grieving kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why the DLC resonated with me. I know so far I played in Wonderlands. It's there's like really no connection to the other games as far as I can tell.
Really now.
Yeah, which is like it's interesting because in Borderlands 3, Tina is like I think she's like 20 years old or something.
Yeah.
And then in Wonderlands and in this DLC she's still like a teenager or like a kid.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So whenever it takes place before Borderlands 3. But I haven't ran into anything that like directly connects to Borderlands. So Wonderlands I think is a better entry point than Assault on Dragon Keep.
Okay. Okay. But yeah. So any last minute thoughts? Like I said, I feel awful just because like I said, I don't know why my PlayStation refused to play this game, but like I don't know. At the end of the day, this is a Borderlands RPG, and I feel like you get the pros and the cons of both. Is that they're silly, dumb humor, but at the end of the day, it's less about the actual humor and the setting itself, and it's at least from what I remember playing Borderlands, it's just fun to, goof off with your friends and just like do dumb grindy action, and like the minute to minute gameplay wasn't amazing, but it was more so the fact that like we were this team, we were this bond, and like we were just shooting, and I do think that is some cool thing that the Borderlands series offers compared to other games.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, with this DLC offering, I feel like it is quality over quantity. I mean, it's only like 5 to 6 hours long, so it's like if you're looking for like a really funny, really charming first-person shooter game, then it's definitely I think worth the offering.
But that will do it for the game section. But before we move on to the news, we are going to have a sponsor break, which we'll go to right now. What's up, guys? Vincent here again. So I'm changing it up. Episode 2, gradually changing it. Because I thought about it a bit more, and this show is nothing if not for my guests, for the viewers, the people who write in, the people who comment on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that other stuff. It's really about you guys. So instead of just giving some random corporate shill or some random just shout out to a company who doesn't even know I exist. I want to put the focus back on you guys and what you guys means and supporting your guys' passions, your guys' interests, and kind of just spreading the love all around equally. So, if there's anything, be it a Twitter account, a podcast, a stream, anything you think I would be interested in, or the PlayStation Plus audience would be interested in, write into the show, pspluspod@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to spread the love and spread the attention. But for now, let's bring the attention back to our lovely guest, Hunter Gerace. I hope I got that right. Maybe, possibly. Because for those of you who don't know, he's actually a game developer himself, and he's released his first game. It's called Animus Toil. It's his first video game ever, and it's on multiple platforms, including Windows, web browser, and you can even play it on the Analog Pocket. Experience the experimental puzzle platformer on multiple devices, and it even works right on your mobile device too. You can head over to mindsetmakers.itch.io/animus toil. That link will be in description. But yeah, for anyone who likes classic Game Boy games or puzzle games or all this other stuff, Hunter did this all by himself. So proud. It's so cool to see what one person's passion and excitement can do. But yeah, so it definitely mean a lot to him. It definitely mean a lot to me. You go check out Animus Toil on itch.io, as well as subscribe to Mindset Makers on Twitter and all those various fun places. But for now, let's head back to the podcast already in progress. Moving on to the news, we have a 7 news story. A very light month after the insanity of January. And again, this is always the fun part, kind of going back to the whole, this episode is 2.5 months delayed. It is kind of fun going back and looking at the month's news, because you think back to the start of the year and it was like, oh, acquisition, buy. And it's like, there was Bungie and then there was Activision, and that's pretty much it. And then the February was relatively quiet for the most part.
Yeah, I think when you got into March and then the whole Spartacus news, I think that was March, right? It was either late March or early April.
No, yeah, it was
whenever they dropped all that.
Yeah, it was the end of March, so it was like the 28th or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always fun going back. But again, we always try to do evergreen content. So we're gonna go to, which I'm pretty sure this first news story is already outdated, but it comes to us from PushSquare.com by Sammy Barker, and it's that PlayStation Plus is nearing 50 million subscribers. There's much talk about Sony's failing in the subscription space, but it's more remembering that PlayStation has had by far the most successful service in the industry right now. PlayStation Plus has reached a new record number of having active members during the quarterly period ending on December 31st, 2021, reaching 48 million. This is the highest number that the service has ever achieved and is up slightly compared to 47.6 million registered users during the same period last year. It is likely this figure will drop slightly in the future reports, but it's clear that the growth is still strong for the subscription. So, again, just a quick, easy one that's, what was it? Leading into, like you said, the whole Spartacus rumors. But I do find it funny that, what was it? Because again, I've asked multiple times throughout the years. What was it? I've asked like last November. I've asked last March and whatever, and it still just weirds me out that what was it? That it's still 48. That still seems like such a low number to me. No, yeah.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
No, you can go. I'm just trying to.
Oh no, I was gonna say like 48 million. I think because I heard recently, and this is as like of April. I heard some number recently for like Game Pass.
Yeah.
subscriptions, and that was surprisingly low. I don't know the exact number,
Mhm. Yeah, because
but
well, the number I was looking is what was it? There is as of July 2021, there's been 116 PS4 sales. So that's what always weirds me out is the fact that they're only just around 48 million, which still means over half the percent of people don't have PlayStation Plus, and that's what weirds me out. Like not even from a oh, plus it's so good. Plus it just weirds me out that there's half the people who own a gaming console and like they're not doing it online or they're not doing it with friends or they're not like that's what weirds me out.
yeah, I mean it is weird, but like I can kind of understand it because people associate PlayStation consoles more with the single player offerings. So that's what I'm kind of thinking, but also on the other side of like yeah, play PS4 is like way popular over Xbox, and of course the casual gamer is gonna buy a PS4 to play Fortnite.
Uh,
So
I'm looking real quick. According to The Verge, as of January of this year, Game Pass had 25 million. So that's
okay, so that's
still
half.
about half exactly.
So I don't know. It maybe it has to do with like marketing because
Mm-hmm.
I bet like the casual gamer only knows like PlayStation Plus is like the Xbox Live Gold, where like you need it to play online and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't know about the discounts or like the monthly offerings or any of that stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's what I find. Obviously, I will get into the real nitty gritty next episode. But that's the whole interesting thing with the whole Project Spartacus thing is um, the fact that it is, uh, you know, we listen to gaming news. We're like reading the daily stuff. Like, we're always like checking daily updates and whatever. So for us, it's the having a three-tiered system is annoying, but it like makes enough sense. I'm just very genuinely curious to see how all this like was it PlayStation Plus extra or whatever, like how that is gonna shake out for normal people. Because I would not be surprised that if what was it if Game Pass is only 25 million, I could see like the PS Plus Premium, like the top tier. I could see that maxing out at like 5.
You think it'll match like 5 million?
Well, just for like the very top, like the because what was it like they break it out where I think like the last tier with all the classic games. Like
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I can see like only because again, if Game Pass is only if Game Pass is only 25, I don't know. Like at least right now, I don't see out of the gate there being this big influx of retro gamers that are having to pay want that um, sorry, yeah, want that whole like retro library.
Yeah. I'm looking up right now. Because I was curious. As of I think May 2021, PlayStation now has 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
honestly, I think the whole strategy comes down to marketing,
Yeah, see
and
that,
obviously that was an issue. That was an issue they had with PlayStation Now, and that's why they're kind of merging everything together. But
which
like if you go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say which I'm a stubborn person, but like I always personally thought it would have been easier to just hype up now, like just tell people what now is. There's all this confusion of like I feel like now's biggest issue has just been it's like you said, it's marketing. Because from what I've read anecdotally, it runs really good. It's pretty quick to hop into games. Like now as a service is not bad. It like ran games great. Like it even competed with stuff like Stadia or even XCloud or whatever. Like the software itself wasn't an issue with now, which is the fact that people didn't know now existed.
Yeah, and I can vouch for like this even the streaming, the PS3 streaming, it works.
Hmm.
Especially on PS5, it works. I had no issues with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just comes down to marketing.
Yeah, because what was it? Oh god, I am bad. Yeah, because what was it? If they could, sorry, now that they are combining the two, you have what was it? The 50 million with PlayStation Plus, and then the $3 million with Now. That's still way like league above Game Pass. So
Yeah, and depending on what they add to that library on top of PlayStation Now, what already it has right now, then yeah, there's a chance it can go higher.
well, yeah, I actually do think it's interesting of old people because I know you have a very big affinity for retro games and for classic games. So I guess both for you personally and I guess just in terms of Sony as a company, like what is your thoughts on the fact that they're limiting the older games behind the premium tier?
It's a smart idea, I think. Um, I mean, clearly it's working for Nintendo because they're doing the same thing.
See, the only thing for me, and I've heard other people kind of speculate the same, is the whole reason Sony is doing the three tiers is because they know if they did two tiers, it like there's this weird business logic of like it wouldn't look as good. So basically, they're again, this is all internet fans theory stuff, but their whole idea is that they're purposely putting the PS3 stuff behind the bigger paywall because they know nobody's gonna pay for it except for the super hardcore retro enthusiasts who they want those games, they want those experiences, and that way they're still able to get people go, well, okay, I don't want to spend the extra, $60 a year for a PS2 or a PS3 game, but I'll spend the extra $10 to upgrade to the middle tier. So they're banking on people kind of just saying, like, okay, well, I don't need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, it's pretty much what they're doing because the second tier is it's like PS4 and PS5 stuff.
Exactly, and that's because even myself, where when people first ask me, they're like, "Oh, are you gonna get it?" I'm like, "Oh, absolutely." And I don't know about the third tier, but it is interesting that, yeah, like you said, like it is just all the weird businessy stuff of if they had flipped it, I feel like people probably would have been more upset.
Wait, you're saying like put the PS4, PS5 stuff in that higher tier,
Yeah, in
and then
the yeah
PS2 in the lower?
yeah exactly. If you did the classic library in the middle, I don't think people would be that excited or be they would be that energetic. They'd be like, "Oh, cool, PS2 games," but they'd be upset that the PS5 is locked away. So I actually think they kind of get to have their cake and eat in it too. Of everyone who has the middle tier, they're gonna get all the games. They're gonna get, all the new hotness, all the games of the month type stuff. And then the hardcore, oh, I've been playing PlayStation since I was a kid. I've been playing PlayStation for 20 years. Those fans are not going to mind as much having to do the slightly higher for the classics. And those are going to be the people who will freak out. It's like, oh my God, they just added Dark Cloud. They just added Twisted Metal Black. Like, those are the people who would be excited for those games.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you and I are in like the minority where we would definitely play the retro stuff,
Yeah, oh yeah.
but like the thing is like I always look back at Nintendo, where like I personally call this and this is gonna go off into a tangent because of
Go for it.
Spartacus and stuff, but I'll be quick.
No, go for it.
So uh, there's this thing on Nintendo's side that I call the Smash Brothers effect, right?
Hmm.
So when Smash Brothers for N64 came out, that's when Earthbound prices went up because they added Ness. No one knew who Ness was,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, I should go play Earthbound," and then the prices went up. Then when Melee came out, they introduced Fire Emblem characters. That's when Fire Emblem became popular, and those prices went up.
Hmm.
So it's like this thing where Sony has these IP, like these long lost IP, and if you look at stuff like if you have these new PS5 players going into something like Astro's Playroom, and they're all like, "Oh, what is that? What is Vib Ribbon? Oh, Vib Ribbon is on the PlayStation Now service. Oh, I should go play it.
Hmm.
Oh, I have to do like the higher tier for it. Okay, I'll pay it, and then
Hmm.
I'll play it."
Exactly.
So there's this is like the comparison to Microsoft, where Microsoft doesn't really have any of those legacy IP. Sony does, and they can bank off of that.
Well, not even that. Kind of bringing Nintendo into it. I think Microsoft did the good and the bad thing is they were so focused on backwards compatibility, and when they were like doing the whole like updating the games to be backward compatible. The problem is that they basically burned through all the big high tier titles, and then it got to the end where it's like, hey, we've updated backwards compatibility. We're adding Obi-Wan Jedi Knight 2 or whatever it was like.
Yeah.
But I do think PlayStation kind of can have their cake and eat it too, because you look at what Nintendo is doing with the Switch Online, and I saw a bunch of tweet and posts, and people were getting excited over Mario Golf because that's the free game for this month.
Yeah, and I mean, back to Nintendo, and this is again why I personally advocate for like ports and remasters and stuff on consoles. Like when Metroid Dread got announced, remember like all the Metroid sales on the eShop, they just went up because people wanted to play Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
Because people were new to that series and they wanted to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think of like, I think I made this example back when Rift Apart came out. I'm like, there are people on my Twitter feed right now that are going to replay like the original Ratchet and Clank trilogy, and they're leading up to Rift Apart. So why don't they advertise that on PlayStation Now? You can stream the original Ratchet and Clank games.
Exactly. Where um, it does get into that weird thing of like you hyping it up, but like what was it like with the new what was it? There's the new Twisted Metal show coming next year, I believe. But like literally, just
Yeah.
put Black, or if you even want to tie it to kind of more current games, like they could have done, hey, Horizon Zero Dawn is coming out. Here's like, we put Killzone onto now so you can play the original game that they played. Like, I do feel there is a way where, like you said, even if it's an older game, they can kind of tie it into the market in a bit more, where it's not like, oh, this is the direct continue, Killzone leads into Horizon. No, but just go like, hey, there's this new what was it? The new Resident Evil is out, and like, hey, here's Under the Skin. It was on PS2. It was a Capcom game. Like, I do think
Yeah.
there are unique ways you can tie into the past and still have that hype of it feeling kind of like a new game or like a new experience, while still digging into that backlog. And like that's kind of my hope for. Obviously, the new PlayStation Plus doesn't launch till June, so there's still plenty of time to figure it out.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of people are upset with the Nintendo service, but the thing for me is like, at least it's only been a few months. So we'll see how year 2 goes. But the thing that I like right now is they're committing to, hey, we have one Nintendo game per month, and that doesn't seem like a big deal. But in the last few months, it does make those monthly drops a lot more exciting. Where I've seen, I saw a lot of people tweeting about Banjo Kazooie when it launched, when Majora's Mask launched. So like, it is possible to give these older games that hype and that news cycle and like be part of the conversation without having to spend all this time and energy making a new game. Like, and I do hope that PlayStation does that, because my worry right now is they're gonna go, hey, we are launching with 500 PS4, excuse me, we're launching with 500 PS2 games, and like out of the gate you get like God of War, Grand Theft Auto, Ico, Shadow Colossus, like all the big titles. And then like every month after that, it's just a random one where it's like, oh, here's what is it, Fan Television or whatever the fireworks game was.
Oh, like Fantavision and stuff.
Exactly. That's
Well,
my worry, is that the later months are just gonna be so meh and whatever that no one is gonna care about the new drops.
well, and see, that's the thing too. That's why I'm personally excited for like people to start merging and migrating into the new PlayStation Plus, because it's like I keep telling people like, you're new to PlayStation, go check out Gravity Rush or go check out Sly Cooper or something. And you know what? Those are on PlayStation Now.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally on the PlayStation Now. So once everything merges over, they'll be able to access that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. That's also my biggest worry is what was it? Because it tangentially related to PlayStation is, what was it, when Funimation? Sorry, when Crunchyroll bought Funimation, or I forget which one bought which, but
Yeah.
because that transition happened, I think, start of February or March, and right now, I'd say about maybe 80%, but there are certain titles that are only on Funimation. And I do have that worry for PlayStation Now where, because what was it? I think there's something like 300, or no, 700 games on PlayStation Now?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot more than people think there are.
And that's my worry is that when the new PlayStation Plus launches, there's not everything's gonna be transferred over. Because that's the weird give and pull of, like I said, like, I want them to do those drops. I want them to do to hype up these new game releases, even if it's just small stuff. But I don't want them to just simply like, oh, cool, we copied the PlayStation Now library and that's it. Like, I feel like that kind of puts them in a
Yeah,
corner.
I think especially with like, I mean, obviously we're getting PS1 and PSP games. I don't know how that's gonna, like, I don't know if they're gonna be like the PS2 games with the trophies and stuff, but
Well,
like,
yeah,
especially the PS2 library on PS4, there's only like 20 games, and even
exactly.
like we can look back at like, I know Ape Escape 3 got rated, but it never got released. So maybe they'll hold on to that. And I mean, it's obvious that they want to put out more games. They just haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with that in June. Obviously, there's I, I guess the one last thought is I've had so many people ask me like, oh, uh, why didn't you blog it? Why didn't you do a video? I'm like, PlayStation literally just crapped out a friggin' thing one day. They just said,
Yeah,
hey, PlayStation Plus is changing. Here you go.
yeah. Especially it was like right after everyone was all like the insiders were like, yeah, something's coming, and then that
So
one morning it just shows up. It's like, okay,
yeah,
cool.
so that's why I'm not more or less upset because the thing is like we really don't know that much. PlayStation was like, all right, here's the tiers, here's the price later. Like this is all dependent on that first drop where, like I
Yeah,
said,
I'm really curious, especially with like the PS1 and PSP games.
yeah, because yeah, especially because people are upset about the small stuff like that. PS3 is still streaming, which um sucks.
The back it sucks. Yeah, I know, and there's also rumors that they're doing emulation or whatever. But
Yeah.
like I said, I still use PlayStation Now. I use it on my PS5, which has like a better Wi-Fi card on it,
Hmm.
and it works fine. I really don't run into any issues. So
Yeah.
it's definitely improved on their back end.
Yeah, that's gonna say it's not ideal, but like I don't think it's as dire as many people are making it out to be. Um, but obviously, again, we'll have to see where it goes. Uh, also, this is I'm surprised nobody else has talked about this. It's still weird to me that it also doesn't include Vita for some reason. Um,
It kind of makes sense because some of those like the first party games, some of those needed
the
like
bubble
the
and the
back
touch.
touch
Yeah.
fags and yeah, and like even the camera. Like they talk about like, well, why didn't they port or remaster Golden Abyss? And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
because
some of
that's
the puzzles in the
swiping.
game, yeah, some of the puzzles used like one of them used like you had to point the camera at a light and then you had to like rub the screen. It was weird.
Well, no, I understand in Sony's eyes, basically the Vita is dead because Vita means death. But it is still weird that like from a play like here let me check. It's just the fact that it's no longer PlayStation Plus is no longer on the Vita.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it is weird that basically, yeah. So PS3 and PS Vita support stopped in 2019. Just in terms of PlayStation Plus, not the servers. But so
Hmm.
yeah, it's still weird that for the last 3 years, um, the PlayStation Plus has just been sitting. Like it's, I understand why they've moved on. Like they don't, it is not a focus for them. Um, but like you said, there's certain games that yes, definitely would need to be transferred and moved over and all that other stuff. But like, what was it? There was the oh god, my brother had it. The PlayStation TV, which let you play
Yeah.
select Vita games. Like if they didn't need the touch features. So like there are games on the Vita that you can play without the Vita itself.
But you have to keep in mind too, like most of those games that they brought over to PS4, they're already like they were remastered. Like Gravity Rush, I know
Yep.
was one of them. They had Tearaway.
Yep.
it's like they already did what they wanted to do. I think. I mean, I would personally love to see Freedom Wars come back, but
Mm,
who knows if that's going to ever happen?
yeah. But
So
but no. Any last thoughts before we moved on?
no, I mean, I know we kind of went off tangent because
No.
we're still technically we're talking about February stuff right now, but
No,
yeah, I mean,
exactly.
we'll see what happens in June, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the lineup is.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the main thing for me is um like I said, I'm just very happy with what Nintendo's doing, and I hope PlayStation does that. I am the kind of person where it'd be like, hey, Dark Cloud 2 for March, and I'd be like, all right, cool. Like I think PlayStation has enough of those weird one-off games that they could do that and kind of hype those up.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, our next story comes to us from Eurogamer.net by Tom Phillips. And it's that PlayStation is planning to launch more than 10 live service games before March of 2026. Sony will launch more than 10 new live service games over the next 4 years, it is said. Just days after announcing that it would purchase Bungie for $3.6 billion. Speaking as part of an investor presentation transcribed by Eurogamer, Sony executive, oh god, I'm gonna butcher this. I apologize. Totoki said Bungie has aided PlayStation in this move and expansion into live service game development. The strategic significance of this acquisition lies not in obtaining the highly successful Destiny franchise, but in incorporating it into Sony's groups and the expertise and technologies Bungie had developed in the live service space. So, and then they go more into the different live
Hmm.
service stuff. But yeah, so for you, what is it? Because again, you play a lot of unique, cool indie, um, like a lot of very story-based games.
Yeah.
So you personally, what does the thought of hearing there's going to be 10 live service games?
Um. Well, okay. Coming from me personally, I recently one of the games was Destiny, like the original Destiny. So I actually went back and finished that, and that's a live service game. And I mean, I enjoyed that, but again, those games are like they're hit or miss for me. I got to be like really invested into them. But as a whole, with like doing 10 live service games, I'm kind of worried because it reminds me of I don't remember what year it was. It must have been like middle of PS4's life cycle, but
Yep.
it's when Sony would put out like a bunch of those free to play games.
Well,
Like you would have like Let It Die and
that's
like
and what was it? The David Jaffe one, the
Drawn to Death.
Drawn to Death.
I
Yes.
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is not exactly. This is not the first time Sony has done this. They've been trying to do this for years.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the thing I do find interesting is a lot of people get upset when they hear the 10. For me personally, I feel like Sony's going in like, all right, 6 of these are probably going to die on the vine. So
Hmm.
I don't view it as they're like, oh, we're going to commit to these 10 games. It's more so, all right, let's try these 10 and then let's see which one actually um, works. Because, sorry, was the other one was also, what was it, The Tomorrow Children, which is also coming back, apparently.
Yeah, but I don't think that one's Sony owned anymore. I think they give the IP back to them.
Yes, yeah. The old
Yeah, yeah.
devs bought them, but no, like that was also like this kind of online multiplayer type thing. So that's what I personally think. I think a lot of people are thinking, oh no, PlayStation's gonna do 10 Fortnites, and I don't think it's gonna be that dramatic. I think they're just gonna do stuff like you said, like the Tomorrow Children, like Let It Die, like these big, technically massively multiplayer games, but really they are just these small niche communities.
Yeah, I feel like it if they were to do that, because again, they did that back in the day and it didn't turn out too well. Um,
I,
but
I think it
like I
just
feel like
comes to their expectations this time around because the last time they were looking for, it wasn't even like they were looking for the next Destiny, but I think they went in with this mindset of, oh, if we have like a or sorry, a 3 million player base, and then those players give us $1, this game's gonna earn so much money. And I don't think that's the right way to go into it with a live service game. I think they need to kind of adjust their expectations this time around of, like I said, just having those small niche groups that they're passionate and they're strong, but they are small and they are niche, and like just kind of going in with that mindset of like, hey, not every one of these is going to be successful just because otherwise they're all going to cannibalize each other. I feel like too much.
Right, and I think that's why they have to mix things up a bit because obviously one of the live service things is going to be whatever Bungie's doing, whether that's Destiny or like a new IP, which I think they're working on a new IP. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then you have like factions, which is
Yeah.
supposedly in development. You have Twisted Metal,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like they can pull from their big IP and make something out of it. Like I would absolutely kill for like a Horizon MMO,
Yeah.
like some live service game with that kind of combat.
Well, yeah,
But
because the one I always pitched, what was it for Infamous 3 was when because at the end of Infamous 2 there's these two different storylines, like one where spoilers for Infamous 2, but one where Cole lives and one where Cole dies.
yeah,
And I always thought it would have been cool that for Infamous you have the story mode be where Cole died, and then that's a continuation. And then you have a multiplayer mode where you make your own person with your own powers and all this other stuff. And like that's the one where Cole lives, and like he goes around giving other people powers. I always thought it was a really cool way of like, cool. Cole gives you your powers. You go out, you do missions, you do deathmatch stuff. Like I thought, like I do think at the end of the day, I'm still always going to be a single player gamer. That's how I just enjoy my games. But
hmm
during the PS4 generation, I've definitely softened up on multiplayer, and like there's a lot of like I this season's trash, but I do play a lot of Fortnite. I do play a lot of multiplayer games. So like I don't hate multiplayer games as much as I used to anymore. The main thing for me is like it kind of has to know what it wants to do, that it can't go in saying like, oh, we're gonna be Call of Duty and we're gonna have this epic death match of like it does have to be, be okay being this, hey, I'm gonna pop in, play a match or two, and then leave. And like this game's not gonna be the center of my world. It's not gonna be something that I'm constantly thinking about or like wondering or looking stuff up. But it is gonna be a game that's constantly in my cycle, in my rotation. Where sometimes you want a break from the big story game, like you just want to go and have some mindless violence. And I do think these free to play games kind of excel in that area, that they do have a lot more easy digestible content.
right. You want like a game that's like good for like listening to a podcast in the background or just chatting with
Exactly.
friends and stuff. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. Yeah,
I
because
know that feeling.
I'm looking at the article, and the last one they're saying is that again, like Twisted Metal, yeah, like I don't you don't have to do a whole 10-hour Twisted Metal campaign. Just add new cars, add new vehicles, add new maps. That's it. That's
Yeah,
all.
Twisted Metal would work way better as a live service game.
Exactly. Like, it's not about not doing it. It's just finding the right specific game. Where again, would I love a Gravity Rush live service game? Absolutely. It probably would not be very good. Like, people would probably get bored of it after a while of just going
Everyone
around.
would just be floating around everywhere.
Exactly, just
That's all
a
it is.
100 players floating up on the map. So, but like, what was it like? Even what was it? I think Ratchet and Clank was a good example of, you know, they tried something with All for One, and it's one of those things of like, all right, cool. I don't think Ratchet himself would work in a battle royale setting, but I feel like if they did it with the spaceship sections where like you're controlling his ship, that actually seems like way more different, because then you can do the different ships, you can do the different parts. Like, I think it really just comes down to how they try to adapt each specific game into the genre.
Yeah, you would have to. It would have to adjust a bit because I know Like if you go from the original Ratchet and Clanks to something like Ratchet Deadlocked, because I know that one was more of a multiplayer focused game.
Yeah.
That one I know they definitely changed up the gameplay a bit.
Hmm.
So you'd have to like it can't be part of the main series is what I'm saying. You'd have to like spin it off a bit.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah. Any last thoughts before we move on, sir?
No, I mean again I'm a little worried about it, but if they do the IP right, if they have good IP for live service, then I'll be interested.
Hmm. Yeah. Like I said, I'm just expecting half of these to. I don't think all 10 are gonna last by 2026 or. I
Yeah,
I feel like some of them are like gonna be like, all right, we did this for 2-3 years, all right, we're out. Like, and as long as they go in with that mindset, like I feel like it's going to be fine for them.
yeah. I mean, whatever boosts their PlayStation Plus numbers, I guess.
Well, exactly. That's
Yeah,
the what was it? Even what was it? Destruction All Stars. Like that is a perfect example of. I think what was it? Just be. I thought that game was gonna do gangbusters. I was shocked how much that game, um, floundered. But I guess
yeah. I think. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it really all comes down to how good the actual game it is because it doesn't matter how free it is, how like if it's with plus like all this other stuff. Like if the game's not good, the game's not good. It doesn't matter how much you give it away or what options you give people.
Hmm.
But moving on from that, the next one is a uh, comes to us from videogameschronicles.com by Jordan Midler. And it's that the horror game Marfa is Dead will be censored on PlayStation platforms. Um, and it says in a statement posted to Twitter, the team has claimed that the Xbox and the PC version of the game would be unaffected. However, it has been removed from the PS4 and PS5 version of the games. Marfa is Dead is a narrative adventure game recommended for adult audience only, with play consistent of potentially discomforting scenes and themes that may distress some players. The statement continues, it is with great regret that we have to modify the experience on PS5 and PS4 versions with some elements no longer being playable. So that was the initial news story, and give me half as, although it was later came out what had actually been revealed, and that comes to us from NME.com by George and Young. Sorry. So here's a list of all the changes from Marfa is Dead. The face peeling scene is no longer interactive. The scene where Gulia cuts open Marfa's womb is no longer interactive. An option has been added to skip the censored cutscene while they are playing. And a disclaimer text at the start of the game has been updated. It is now more sensitive, clear, and includes the warning of miscarriages references. Also, any mention of masturbation has been totally removed from the church chapter. This includes voiceover and text. Um, so I know a lot of people.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people a few months ago when this first dropped got really upset because this isn't the first time Sony has censored stuff, but it's definitely been a while. But I do find it interesting that before we actually knew what it was, so many people are like, "Oh, Sony is censoring this game. This sucks. This is why PlayStation sucks. Look at Xbox; they're getting it for free." And then it comes out, and it's like, no, it's a very graphic and like disturbing scene. So I'm very curious. Like, I don't necessarily defend Sony, but now that we have the added context of what the scene is, I do understand a bit more. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, can you understand why Sony felt they had to remove it from the game, or do you think that Sony should just kind of have let it be?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they removed it, but again, we've seen these stories before with Sony where they're censoring like even like the anime games and stuff nowadays that they're censoring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it has to do with their storefront
Mm-hmm.
because I mean we see even on again they censor games that come out on Switch just fine and like on Xbox just fine. I think it has to do with their marketplace because from what I can tell, Sony's pretty strict with their marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what was it? They were the one who removed Cyberpunk because even
Yeah,
during
exactly.
that whole time, what was it? Microsoft was still up. Like you could still technically do the refund, and then Sony was the one where like, no, until this refund issue is sorted out, we're not gonna have it on its storefront.
Right, and I think especially with Xbox too, because I know Xbox has like early access games. I know Sony doesn't usually do that stuff.
No, yeah, the
Um,
the Xbox marketplace is very interesting just because there's so much because it's not technically the Xbox marketplace, it's the uh
Microsoft.
exactly the
Yeah.
Windows one. So you have a lot of like these TV and apps and like all these other stuff that I wouldn't traditionally consider part of the Xbox family.
Yeah, it's all tied to the PC and like Microsoft stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like what they censored and the content they censored, I mean, I guess it's understandable. I watched the scene with the face. I've seen it before, and it's pretty gruesome. I mean, it. I played The Last of Us 2, and even that's kind of like borderline gruesome. But I mean, I think there's a standard when it comes to like ESRB ratings and stuff. Like, there's certain things you can't do.
Yeah, obviously this take this with a grain of salt because this is coming to from crappygames.mares or so. I think this is someone's wiki page, but they're going on like aside from Martha is Dead, the other games they've censored were 20 Ladies, um, Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, SNK 40th Collection, Warriors Orochi, and then after like until that it's Devil May Cry 5.
Yeah, that was a notable one.
Yeah, there's a scene where Dante carries a naked Triss onto his motorcycle with sun flares bursting out of Trish's buttocks on the PS4 version, while the Xbox and PC versions were completely intact. A patch was later made to remove the flares in the PS4 version. But that's the thing, I do, there is. I know a lot of people have this weird thing where they think Sony's censoring a lot of stuff. It's not as bad as they say it is, so it does make me. I'm just curious, like why. Uh, why Martha is dead of all the other ones? Because, like you said, there's been far more horrific stuff in the last few months, even.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially Martha is Dead is like it's a smaller title, and we
It
already
got.
have reviews out for it. I heard it's not that good, but
Yeah, exactly. Like apparently, it's very not ham-fisted, but like the story's just okay. Like it's not like Martha is Dead is this hidden classic and Sony censored it. Like the whole situation is just weird.
yeah,
Like I can understand if this was something like what was it, like Destiny or like Doom Eternal or whatever, but I think it's just the fact that Sony, like you said, because there's so much stuff. I guess I'm trying to think how to describe it. Basically, they don't want a lot of filth on the back end of their store because like they know people are going to come into the ecosystem, they're going to come into the PlayStation for the Horizons, for the God of Wars, all this other stuff, but they're just worried about the people who you're like, oh, I've got $5, like I got a gift card, okay, what can I get? Oh, Marfa's Dead, it's free. So like I can see why they are more focusing on those like smaller back end titles of the stuff that most people probably wouldn't care about.
yeah. Maybe it has to do with like the sales demographic of the PlayStation because like you'll have kid like as far as I can tell, PlayStation is like the highest selling console over Xbox, so
Yeah.
it'd be understandable to be like, oh yeah, most of the kids are going to be on PlayStation, so we should probably make sure we don't put out an adult game on the PlayStation.
Yeah, so it's one of those
So
things. I can see why. Oh, there we go. I can understand at base level why some people would be upset at like, oh no, Sony is censoring the games. I just don't think it's as rampant as people is. Because again, even the Devil May Cry thing, like I had to. That was like what 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Devil May Cry is a more
The
substantial
notable.
censorship than this one. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that series has been notable for being weird and over the top, so
Mhm.
that's one of the weirder ones.
Yeah, so I'm not defending these Sony censorships, but I do think what was it? It's not as bad as it initially seems. Like, I don't like
Yeah.
it. At the end of the day, I would prefer people to just make whatever they want and let, people decide. But I'm also not going to be as upset if um, the only time it would be an issue for me is if we heard more cases of it. Like, if every other week it's like, oh, hey, we got, our game got denied approval because of this scene and this scene. But, like, for the most part, it seems like most devs have been working fine within the restraints of Sony. I can't really think of any major cases aside from Devil May Cry that's had, like, big rub up against Sony censorship.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Sony's pretty strict when it comes to like authorizing games to be put on their store and stuff. So
But moving on from that, our next story comes to us from PlayStationUniverse.com, and it's that Ubisoft CEO says it can stay independent, but it would review any buyout offers. And this one comes to us from Michael Hardens. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot has revealed that the publishing giant ARM aims to stay independent, but any buyout offer that comes to the table will still be reviewed by the board of directors. Speaking during the company's latest earnings, Guillemot commented, "We have always taken decisions in the interest of our stakeholders, which are our employees, players, and shareholders. Ubisoft can remain independent. We have the talent, financial scale, and a large portfolio of original IP. However, saying that, if there were an offer to buy us, the board of directors would, of course, review it in the interest of all stakeholders." Frederic Duget, Ubisoft CFO, said that it would not speculate as to why there haven't been any offers for Ubisoft that far. What we can say is that we have high-value assets, we have the scale to remain independent, and create very meaningful value in the future. Because we have scale in terms of our workforce, engineering, technology, IP, and engaged community. So, again, obviously, when I added this to the docket back in February, March, the whole landscape seemed a lot more dire. It seemed like everyone was buying everyone else. It seems to have calmed down for a bit, but there's still rumors of, I think what was it? Greg Miller got quoted as saying that PlayStation might have one more big buyout.
yeah, and that's assumed to be like a publisher or something.
Yeah, so
We keep hearing that. As of right now, as a recording, we don't know who that is.
yeah,
So
yeah. But that's good to say. So, both in terms of how would you feel about just in general if somebody else bought Ubisoft, even if it was, let's say, EA or like Take-Two or like another actual publisher.
for me personally, I wouldn't care because I'm not big on Ubisoft games.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know they're a pretty substantial publisher. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'd feel if one of the big three. I mean, I'm sure Nintendo's not going to do it, but if one of the big
Well, you
two,
you
if one
say
of the
that,
big
but
two,
look, they have what is it? They have
Mario plus
rabbits. The Star Fox was in what was it? Starlink. Like, Nintendo has
Starlink.
a very good rapport with Ubisoft. Like, they're one of the few devs they actually just let them work on their games.
Yeah, but Nintendo's not known for buying like
Oh no.
like big studios.
What was
I
it?
think. I feel like that's what I'm trying to say. But like,
There was a news story this week where it's like, oh, PlayStation bought another studio and Nintendo bought a new office building.
yeah, they bought like land or something in Japan.
But no,
Oh man.
Ubisoft is actually, like, I love Ubisoft just because the thing I always joke with people is I feel like Ubisoft is EA with morals, where I'm always acutely aware Ubisoft is trying to make money, but I also feel like that Ubisoft generally wants to make good product. That, they try to make, obviously they make a lot of franchises I like Assassin's Creed and the Ghost Recon and all this other stuff, and they'll still experiment with new stuff like Gods and Monsters and Riders Republic and all this other stuff. And, like, much like Sony, they are trying to get the new hotness. They're trying to get that new runaway success. And I do understand we're like, all right, cool, you guys are clearly chasing a trend, but it never feels kind of scummy or like skeezy. Like even stuff like Hyperscape, that was clearly just them trying to do a battle royale, but it still felt like they put time and effort and thought into it, and they kind of try to make it the best product it could be compared to just whatever could they get out of the door fast.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, Hyperscape is pretty much dead. But
Yeah.
um,
Oh well,
yeah,
no. Well, even what was it? Even God, what was it? The Ghost Recon thing with their whole, you know, experimentation with NFTs and like trying to store and that. I think that lasted like 6 months, and then they were like, all right, cool, we're done with this.
they backed out. Yeah, they backed out of that quick.
Like yeah, like Ubisoft 100% is only focused on making money, uh, and at the end, of, like even the way they've transitioned Assassin's Creed from a single player game to uh, a more live service game. Ubisoft only wants money, but I do feel like they at least put the effort into try, which is what I personally appreciate compared to a company like EA where it is more on the nose. Like EA is just very much like we want money and we don't like you look at the way they treated Star Wars Battlefront or the sports games or things of that sort, or yeah, even stuff like, you know,
Closing down studios and stuff.
exactly. Like EA is a lot
Yeah.
more cutthroat and to the point, and they're like, all right, cool. This isn't making us money. Get rid of this. This isn't making us money. Get rid of it. This is making us money. Let's just like, you know, keep it going forever. Like, I don't know. You know, and I've had people call me out on this, saying like, well, Ubisoft is they appear more nice and they're more like, oh, we're for the gamers and this and like, and Ubisoft has done a lot of like awful stuff. Like, there's been a lot of accusations, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say with
The sexual
he who
harassment with
he who should not be named and stuff.
yeah, with
The CEO.
Crunch, all this other stuff. So like I'm not gonna say that Ubisoft is without like there's definitely a lot of areas Ubisoft needs to grow. But I don't know, for me personally, I do appreciate the fact that I do think Ubisoft kind of loses its magic and its importance if it gets bought up by one of the other like major players.
Yeah, and I could say the same argument for like all these big publisher acquisitions. Like I made the argument back in the day with Square Enix, and people are like, "Oh, Sony should buy out Square Enix." I'm like, "No,
No.
they should stay independent." Because the reason why is that like for Square Enix, for example, I know Ubisoft has like Mario plus Rabbids and stuff, but Square Enix is a better example where like they put out stuff with Nintendo where it's like Octopath Traveler is a fantastic game,
Mhm.
and then with Sony they put out games like Final Fantasy VII Remake is a fantastic game. So if they get bought out by someone, then you're gonna lose
Yeah,
one of those libraries. So it's like they're way better off staying multi-platform because they'll have those deals like that.
exactly. Where um you know, and that's I guess the thing for me is I feel it's not a simple case of IP where when this whole buying spree went around, people were just like, oh well, this developer has like, oh, buy Konami for their IP and this and other stuff, and like I think you need that. That is my biggest worry. Is not even the fact of like, oh, I as a PlayStation gamer can't play Starfield. Like it's not even that. It's the fact that just I feel like you to have a healthy game industry, you do need that third party system and like that you need those outliers to kind of fill in the gaps that the main console manufacturer is not going to do. So like as much as I don't personally like them, you need an EA, you need an Activision, you need this like third party person to fill those gaps. And with Activision being bought, it takes a big player out of the market. So like now it's pretty much just Ubisoft, EA, and Take Two, and even Take Two like is nowhere near the size of the other two. So my big worry is
Yeah,
like me personally, like as like Vincent Kenny as a person, I would be ecstatic if Sony bought Ubisoft. But that is a purely selfish thing. Like, just for me, like, like, for me, it's like, cool. Oh, cool. Assassin's Creed, PlayStation, cool. Like, that affects me in no way. But in terms of the industry as a whole, like, I think Ubisoft needs to stay as independent as possible. That's the thing. Like, if they have to join with, like, a EA or a Take-Two or even a Tencent or, like, some other third party, that I'm a little bit more accepting of. But the second it goes into the first party world, that's where I think the issue is, just because you lose that variety of the market.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not big on Ubisoft. If I had to put my money on it, though, if we're just making predictions right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I feel like Microsoft has a better chance of buying them out, only because of their relationship with Ubisoft. Because if you think about it, back in the day, I mean, I'm pretty sure Splinter Cell was an Xbox exclusive for a bit,
Yep, the
and
original
then
one, yeah.
yeah, I mean, like I was gonna say Beyond Good and Evil, but I don't think that was exclusive for a bit. Um, but yeah, it's that relationship, and then plus like Ubi Play or whatever their subscription service that's on Game Pass already.
Well,
So
sorry,
I
the Uplay is on Xbox, but it's not on Game Pass.
oh okay so
So like you can
that's a
access,
little bit of
yeah,
difference.
so you can access the launcher from your Xbox, but you still have to pay for, because what was it? Uplay wasn't on Game Pass, but Rainbow Six Extraction or whatever the new one is.
Okay, that's what I was
That
thinking of
yeah,
then.
that one was on Game Pass. So
But like even that like that kind of relationship with Ubisoft, I feel like Microsoft is gonna do it eventually, but I mean, what's his name is saying the CEO. I keep forgetting his name, but um, it's just that they're reviewing offers and stuff. I feel like if they like if their shares go down the tank, if something bad happens to them, then they'll consider it. But right now, they seem to be fine.
yeah, exactly.
So
So we'll have to see what happens with that. But moving on from that story and still staying on exclusivity. Oh, my computer freezing. This one comes to us from Dextro.com. And it's that Microsoft has confirmed that Call of Duty will keep on releasing on PS5 and PS4, and this comes to us from Lawrence Scotty. Following Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard, PlayStation fans were concerned for the future of Call of Duty on the platform. Now, Microsoft has confirmed their intention to keep publishing COD games on PlayStation consoles. Sorry. In the post, the company said Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation systems through the term of any existing agreements with Activision. Microsoft also added more good news for PlayStation owners, and we have committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. Although there were tons of speculation about the future of the franchise on PS5 and PS4, it doesn't look like COD will be going anywhere. Back on January 2022, Xbox Phil Spencer announced that Xbox's intention to honor existing agreements with COD and PlayStation. Microsoft has also confirmed interest in supporting Nintendo. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business. Excuse me. So that's the whole weird sticky thing living in this whole post acquisition world. It's still so new that we're still learning. Like, what was it? I think Starfield is really the first game of note that's gonna be exclusive, because so far most of the other games have like come out on both systems. Because what was it? I believe Psychonauts came out on both. Um,
yeah, those were mainly contractual though, because I know you're thinking of like Deathloop and
yeah,
Ghostwire and stuff.
yeah, no, but that's my point. Is it's very interesting that I feel like we're really not going to feel the ramification of a lot of these deals until 3-4 years from now.
Well, yeah, I mean, even as of right now, I don't even think the Activision Blizzard deal is finalized yet, because I think there was some news recently that they're looking into it because they think it might be like undoable or some weird thing like that. They're trying to
Yeah.
see something wrong with it or whatever.
Well, there's the rumor that what was it? Um, Bobby Kotick like did it on purpose and that he bought a bunch of stocks before the sales, so he's gonna make a lot of money. So they have to investigate it for insider trading.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if he did that.
But
Freaking idiot. But
what
yeah,
what
yeah,
no, that's the thing I find interesting is, going back to Ubisoft, we were talking about like it's not good to limit it. That's also the other side of the coin of like we're in such a weird, unique world. Microsoft could buy Ubisoft and not have it affect things. Like that is a possibility.
I mean, we look at stuff like this isn't the first time Xbox has done this either. Because you look at Minecraft, and
Mm.
hell, I was just playing Minecraft on my Switch a few days ago, and that's
And
you connect your Microsoft account and everything, and it's all there.
well, yeah, even was it? I believe it's also on PS5 too. Like it got the PS5 upgrade.
Yeah,
So the only weird thing with that is, I think they have basically fragmented it where because I used like way back in the day I had the PS4 version and I was looking for updates and apparently basically the way they did it is like it goes like PC, then the Bedrock, then the consoles, and then the PlayStation versions were the very last one to typically get updates.
yeah, they did that with another game recently. I totally forgot what it was though.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I might be thinking of Hellblade, but I don't think Hellblade got the PS4, PS5 patch or whatever. But what I'm saying is like, I mean, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Call of Duty is
Mm.
gonna stay on PlayStation. I mean, it's one of the best-selling franchises out there. You want to get all the money you can.
Well, that's what I say. For me, honestly, I'm very shocked. Like I could see a world, like I can say, because even what was it with Starfield, they're just like, no, that's Xbox exclusive, and people get into the minutia of like, oh, well, that's a new IP, so that's different, and all this other stuff. But like, I honestly could see the world where, Microsoft was like, no, it's only on Xbox. You're only getting it on Xbox. If you want to play Call of Duty, you have to do that. So I'm not saying that they would do this for Ubisoft, but like I could see them doing it for a lot of the bigger titles where you're like, all right, cool. Gods and Monsters 2, that's only on Xbox, but like Assassin's Creed would stay on PlayStation, and Rainbow Six would stay on PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be the way they monetize it. Like, if you do Call of Duty, like you can keep Warzone on PlayStation, but if there's like a new campaign game, like a
Hmm.
5 to 6 hour campaign, then you can make that exclusive to Xbox.
Exactly, or because even sorry, with what was it with PlayStation, like I'm trying to figure out, lost my words. It's sorry. No, what I was gonna say is that yes, like I think that's just kind of my grumpy old madness of the fact of like, oh cool, this studio bought this company, cool, their games are locked. Like I do think we are kind of transitioning into a world with like, obviously not every game is fully cross-play, but we're getting there, and like I think more and more games are being cross-play than they used to, and cross-save, and yeah, sorry, that's what I was gonna say. Even looking at PlayStation and the fact that, again, that MLB The Show is not only on Xbox and Switch, but it has cross save and cross progression. So like you can communicate and play. Like I do think we're getting into a world where I'm not gonna fully say that like console exclusives are ever gonna go away fully. Like I still don't think you're ever gonna see the Last of Us 3 on Xbox. There's certain things
No,
that won't
yeah,
happen, but it isn't an ironclad like death sentence anymore. There's a lot more room for flexibility.
yeah. I mean, of course, you need exclusives to sell the consoles and stuff, so that's never gonna go away.
Yeah.
Um, it just depends. Like, I mean, like I said, Call of Duty is one of the biggest, best-selling franchises out there, so of course you want to keep it multi-platform.
Well, I think PlayStation's PC is a good example. Like how I personally would be fine with it. Of like, hey, PlayStation gets the big launch, and then it comes to PC. a year to 6 months later, where like once the
Yeah.
conversation is over and everything, it's like cool, now you can have it on this console, and it's not exactly like timed exclusivity, um because with when you look at stuff like what was it, Rise of the Tomb Raider, that like kind of killed a lot of me personally, my hype for that game, because it was like, oh, it's on Xbox but only for a year, and it's like, well, okay, well then I can just wait the year for it to come to PlayStation. And it did come to PlayStation eventually, but because that year, um because I just sat around knowing that like, oh, it's gonna come eventually, when it did come to PlayStation, there wasn't that excitement. But
That also came out the same day as Fallout 4, I think, too.
that's
I think that
probably
was a big issue with that game.
that's that could be what did it.
Yeah.
But you look at PlayStation's PC ports, and those games, like, they're always topping the charts. People are always excited. Like when I remember a lot of people streaming when Horizon got released on PC.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know that one launched with pretty bad optimization, but
Mm-hmm.
like I mean,
Oh,
even from a development standpoint, I can understand why it takes them that long to port it to PC because I mean, you unlock frame rates and
yeah.
you allow yeah because people are going to play in ultra wide, so you have to adjust like the rendering and the field of view and stuff. So
Mhm.
it of course it's going to take some time to do that, and some games won't work with that.
Well, no, I that's what I'm saying. I think, um, for me, I don't consider that like timed exclusivity, because it's not even. I guess basically when you tell people up front that like, oh, this game is gonna come in 6 months, it does put a weird stigma around it. But I think the way PlayStation does it works really well is they'll go like, oh, hey, I think it's fairly safe to assume now that whatever um, that Horizon 2 will eventually come to PC at some point.
Yeah,
We don't know if it's a year from now or 2 years from now. It might even be 3 or 4. But like, we know eventually Horizon's gonna come to PC. Eventually, was it God of War Ragnarok is gonna be on PC eventually. But because PlayStation hasn't like given us definitive dates, it does make that process a lot more easier. Where if again, if Xbox had come out and said, "Hey, Starfield is coming to PlayStation a year, after," most people would be like, "All right, cool. I'm just gonna wait that year." But right now, there is that tension of like, okay, well, if I want to play Starfield, I have to do it on Xbox. But then if they change their mind later, I don't think there would be as much discourse.
yeah.
If Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
go
just
ahead.
like more. I feel like more people would probably give Xbox the benefit of like, oh, hey, look, they're finally bringing Starfield to PlayStation. That's so awesome. That's so cool. So they would be able to have their cake of like having it be exclusive and then change their mind later. And I think people would be totally fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's a messaging thing. I mean, I can say the same thing with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Like even though those came out on PlayStation 5, I totally skipped them because I know they're going to come to Game Pass eventually. I'd rather just play them on there.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you said,
So, yeah,
no, yeah. So that it really just comes down to how they position these games like in the moment.
exactly, yeah.
But moving on from that one, I'm actually gonna hop around and seeing how we're on Horizon, let's just do a quick review roundup for Horizon. Yeah, Horizon Forbidden West. The title confused me for a second because I was like, wait, is that the first one? No, but this comes to us from GameSpot.com by Eddie Makua. Makawa. I hear this name enough that I probably should be paying attention. Sony's first major release of 2022 is Horizon Forbidden West, and it is launching this week on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But what do the critics think of the long-awaited sequel? Here at GameSpot, our Forbidden West review scored an 8 out of 10. We said that Horizon does a lot more right than it does wrong. It might be jam-packed with stuff to see and do. And remember, but its many systems come together, it can be a beautiful, exciting, and delightfully open world experience. Um, it also got a 6.5 from Stevor. The game is full of contrast. A game about robot dinosaurs where you spend far too much time fighting robot meerkat and boars instead for some reason. One with brilliant voice acting that you begin to hate because some characters won't shut up, where the side quests are great but they're simply too simple to feel so pointless, where the combat features a complex balance between elemental strengths and weaknesses, but you can ignore all that via a rain of explosive spearheads. Gaming Bolt gave it a 10 out of 10. Telegraph, 3 out of 5. Games Radar, 4.5 out of 5. What Gorilla has achieved here is nothing short of phenomenal. Story, gameplay, mechanics, and the world itself are all such improvements of the original game, which in itself is a feat alone. The climate, ironically, is the only thing that really holds back the utter perfection. But it's not enough to make Aloy's latest story go without anything from our highest recommendation. You know a game is good when robot dinosaurs aren't the only thing you want to talk to your friends first about. So yeah, so this is just a brief one. Because I believe you've also played Horizon when it came out.
Yes, yeah, I wasn't one of those people that played Elden Ring. I actually played Horizon.
Well,
um,
yeah, because I assume you've played the first one, obviously.
oh yeah, yeah, I've the first game is like one of my favorite games of all time, so I of course had to pick up the
You're
sequel.
you're not gonna like what I say next, then, because
No, go
I
ahead.
no
I mean,
I
I know people
no
have like,
I know it's not
well,
even. I don't even have flaws. The problem is just that I can't muster the energy to play it, and that's not to say that I'm not excited. It's just this one. I have this weird thing where if someone tells me something's good, it actually makes me less interested. Because the example I always go to is um, I've never seen The Godfather or like Jaws, and it's like
mhm.
it's for me. It's like no, I'm sure I would love those films. I'm sure those really I would not get enough of them. But it's like, well, I mean, if everybody else loves them and they tell me I'm gonna love it, I much rather put that time into like a more unique, interesting experience. That like, oh man, like hey, I played this indie game or I played this like retro game. Like for me, just like uh, what was it? Because even last year when PlayStation did their Play from Home program, where they gave a bunch of games for free to encourage people to like stay home and
Yeah.
stay inside quarantine, they gave you Horizon Zero Dawn, like the complete edition with all the DLC, all the upgrades, all the other stuff, and I still haven't touched it.
So
So
have you started it, or you've never played Horizon?
no, I haven't, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I really want to get into this franchise. It is just that thing of like it's always on the back burner, and there always seems to be something that like goes in front of it. Where like I'm slowly working through my backlog. I finally have the time. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start Horizon. Oh no, Kingdom Hearts came out, or this game came out. So like I always feel like I just need to sit down and focus play that game because the first one seems like it would be really fun because it's pretty much just like they said, just hunting robot dinosaurs with the hunting aspect.
Yeah, I feel like the reason why I love Horizon so much, I think, is that combat, and it's like one of the few games that I actually enjoy the combat a little more than the story itself.
Hmm.
I mean, not to say that like I think Forbidden West has a really incredible story, especially from me who loves sci-fi stuff.
Hmm.
But it's just the combat's addicting, I think.
Well, that's the biggest issue I heard with Forbidden West, and which has me slightly worried about God of War, is that a lot of people are saying that it's good, is really good. It's just more of the same. Like, all right, cool, you're hunting robots and you're gathering supplies. Like, it is just Horizon 2. It is not this leap forward. It doesn't really like push the series to a new bold place. It's just more Horizon. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing amazing, but like it doesn't make it this like game that everyone wants to jump out and talk about. It's just more of the same. And I do find it
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I just gonna say I do find it interesting that the game hasn't done anything wrong. It's done everything perfect, but the fact that it's more of the same, people are just like, oh, okay, that's disappointing. That's sad. When I'm like, well, no, the game did what you wanted. It made you happy. It has a gameplay you enjoyed. So you can't really fault the game for being what it is.
Yeah, and I know, like, I mean, Forbidden West has a lot of quality of life improvements from the first one. There's some things that they tweak a bit from the first one that kind of changed things up. That I don't know how I personally feel about it, but
Mhm.
I feel like those people complaining about like, oh, it's more of the same. I feel like they just didn't like the combat in the first game, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to say is like I was addicted to the combat in the first one, and so going into Forbidden West and like not only getting that combat back and like there's a lot more flexibility and more additions to it, but you also have like a really incredible story, adding on to that world building that I really loved from the first game.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
because
yeah, it's a lot more of that. I know people don't like Aloy as a character, and they're not really into the whole world of Horizon. So yeah, of course they're not gonna like Forbidden West because it is more of that same thing.
well, yeah, and that's what has me worried about God of War is that it looks to be just God. It's God of War again. You're visiting similar areas. You're having similar combat. But if it's good, like at the end of the day, that at least for me personally, that's all that really matters. Is the game good? So like, yes, is it disappointing that there's a lot of similar elements? Is it disappointing that it's not a radical leap forward? Sure, but like it's from what I've seen, like I haven't seen like I know there was the weird issues where with what was it on the PS5 with like the HDR and like Aloy was basically glowing and all this other stuff. So like I know there's definitely been some tech issues, but I haven't heard anyone flat out say the game is bad, and I guess that's just what's kind of disappointing.
And I feel like part of that also has to do with like I don't want to spoil the story, especially if you haven't played Zero Dawn yet.
Hmm.
Um, but like even after finishing Forbidden West, you go back and watch like the story trailer and the launch trailer. They literally tell you nothing about the story.
Hmm.
So I don't know how. I feel like the reviewers can't really. And again, I know that some people don't like the world of Horizon, and that's fine. I personally love it.
Hmm.
Um, but you can't really say much without spoiling certain things.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's where
Well,
some of the
even
negativity comes from.
well, even what was it? I think it was today. The director came out and he was just like, "Oh, by the way, guys, we'll probably do Horizon 3." And it's like, okay, I assume so, but thanks for the clarification. But
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
I mean if you play for I'm not gonna say anything, but yeah, Forbidden West it literally ends with like what the next Horizon's gonna be. And it's assumed it's gonna be a trilogy, which I'm totally fine with because I love trilogies.
mhm,
But yeah, it's pretty obvious. Especially at the end of Zero Dawn it kinda does the similar thing where it teases a sequel.
yeah. Um, but actually, moving on from that, let's transition to our final news story, and it's that the PSVR 2 design gets revealed. And this comes to us from CNET by Scott Stein. And the reason I'm bringing it up is it's interesting that you say that it's going to be a trilogy because they are bringing Horizon to VR. Because what was it? It's
Hmm.
for what was it? Call of the Wild, I believe.
Call of the Mountain, I think.
Call of the Mountain. So
Yeah.
so that's the thing for me is PlayStation had hyped up the sequel. Their apologies, I'm chewing on ice.
That's all good.
Yeah, PlayStation like clearly they hyped up the sequel. They're putting the game on VR. Like they're trying to make this a franchise. Um, so like I first off, what are your thoughts on like Horizon? Obviously, I don't think we have anything for the VR game right now. I think it was just a teaser trailer. But like, what would you want to see from a Horizon VR game?
Um I don't know. I mean, in terms of, of course, I would love more world building because I love the world of Horizon.
Hmm.
Story wise, I have ideas of what they can do, but I can't say anything on this podcast because it
Hmm.
spoils
Hmm.
certain character reveals. But I mean, I don't know what you can do from a gameplay standpoint. I
Yeah.
played like Half-Life Alyx and stuff, and I guess you can do that, but
Hmm.
I don't know what
Yeah, that's the
you
end.
can do.
Um, what is it? Because we'll get it more into a little bit, but I do like I was compared to what I was saying with the live service. Like I feel like you really could fit any PlayStation franchise to a live service game and like have it work because there's so many different ways you can tackle it. VR is the opposite where like there's really only three or four different types of VR games and it's like be it like kind of shooters or motion based or things like that. Like right now, VR is still very limited, so I'm very curious to see how they transition. Because like I honestly, I don't think they would do this, but I would be really interested if they kind of made Call of the Mountain like a kind of a walking sim, where it's not about like hunting and doing this other stuff, and it's just living on the mountain in the Horizon universe.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that either. I mean, even if there are some sequences where you are shooting a bow and arrow, but that's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do the whole game like that. I mean, there are games like that. I know there's a game called like I forget the name. It's like Apex Construct or something like that. That one you use a bow and arrow the whole time you're shooting robots.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I again, there's so much they can do with it, especially like story wise, they can do with it. But it's up in the air for now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited nonetheless though, because
Mm-hmm.
it's more Horizon. I love that stuff.
Well, yeah. So I'm just gonna quickly read off some of the facts from this article because this, what was it? They first revealed this back in January, and I think the update is just more of the actual facts and numbers and whatnot. Um,
Hmm.
but it's saying that the device is going to have an OLED displays with 2000 by 2040 pixel resolution per eye, 60 hertz and 120 hertz frame rates, 110-degree of field of view, eye tracking and vivid rendering, adjustable lens separation, in-head vibration, 3D audio, built-in microphone and audio jack, 4 external cameras for tracking, a single USB connection, and controllers with USB-C, Bluetooth 5.1, tracking, and yeah, and haptic feedback triggers. So yeah, so like you said earlier, that you have what was it? You played Half-Life Alex. You have the what was it? Is Alex on the Quest or just the Index?
So you can play it on the Quest. The thing that people get confused with is that like as long as you have a powerful computer, you can literally use any headset you want with it,
Well,
and then
yeah.
you can just play Half-Life Alyx. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need the Index. I mean, the Index is like the best one you can use because of the finger tracking and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
you can play. I played the whole thing on a Quest,
Yeah.
and it worked fine.
Well, yeah. So, because again, I have a VR. It wasn't by choice. It just came with the camera. But like, I am definitely a VR enthusiast, and I know you're big into um the VR like market too. So just like judging the base specs of about everything we know, like what are your kind of gut feelings on PSVR 2 and like if it's enough or if it's still kind of not doing what the Quest and Index are doing.
I think it. I personally think it's great. I'm really excited for it, especially the improved controllers
Mm-hmm.
from because I mean I've played PlayStation VR. I still have mine. I can't stand the
The
PlayStation
wands.
not only the wands too, but like the way uh it use was it like outside in tracking or something where the
Oh yeah. The,
camera reads your position. So
mhm.
like when you're playing everything with like shift suddenly and you're like not even moving,
No, exactly. Yeah.
it's so weird. But I mean not only that, you have like they're using the haptic feedback of the DualSense for the controllers and like the headset.
Hmm.
It's gonna add more to that immersion. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, because that's always been my thing with PSVR 1 is that it's good tech. I love it. Like if you can find it cheap, I definitely recommend it. But the problem for me is, um, it very much feels like Gen 1 tech, where it's like, oh, there's some flaws. There's gonna not everything's gonna work perfectly. You're gonna have to recalibrate it. Like there are those moments that pull you out of it because you have to. The tech isn't working 100% how it's supposed to be.
Right, and I feel like with VR, you definitely need like it's something that the PlayStation, the Move ones don't even have is the analog sticks. You definitely need that for like movement.
Hmm. So, um, I the way I view the what was it, the PSVR, because like even looking at some of the stats, like um, the Index has like better field of view, and it can do fast, and even the Quest can do as good refresh rates. So for me, like it's not necessarily even a case of the PSVR being this awesome new amazing piece of tech. I think it is just the way I view it. It's just that it's PSVR 2. It is a slightly better version of the VR camera. Like if you want something cheap and sorry, excuse me, if you want something with the more movement and the more like head tracking, like get the Quest. If you want the beefy one with all the bells and whistles, you can do the Index. And then the PSVR is in that kind of middle where you're like, oh, cool, I want to put some money into VR. I want to have a good VR experience, but I don't want to spend the 2 to 3 thousand to buy a PC just meant for VR and then all the expensive equipment and all that other stuff.
Right, and I think what the PSVR 2 has a benefit of is that it is a USB-C, so I'm sure people are going to figure out ways to
Yeah.
have it be able to work with the PC because with the VR1 it was all a proprietary cable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you couldn't plug that into a computer or anything. So
Yeah. Exactly. So, um, what was it? Because I think it's gone from like multiple. I'd have to check. It's gone from like multiple cables to just a single cable on the PSVR 2.
yeah, and it's funny because I was listening to a podcast recently. I forget who said it. I don't know if it was like a rumor or they were doing an analysis on it, but they were saying like the PS5 has enough streaming power to stream to the headset at like a decent frame rate that's like not noticeable for lag at all. So I feel like they seem to think that the USB cable is only for power and that it's actually still streaming to the headset.
Yeah.
So we still don't know all the details just yet. I personally don't feel like that's the case, but we'll see what happens.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Because, again, unfortunately, I've only used the PlayStation, so I don't know. Like, whenever I hear people talk about the Quest, they're like, "Oh, I can't go back. The cords are like so restricting. All this other stuff." I've never found the cords that much of a hassle, to be honest. The only time it's ever been an issue for me is like if I'm doing something weirdly specific, like I'm trying to bend over backwards and like look behind me. But like typically when I'm looking forward and I'm just like looking around, the cable has never been an issue for me.
Yeah, I mean that's also a game by game basis and like the space you use because like when you're playing something like Half-Life Alyx where like you can not only move with the analog sticks but you'll have to like duck and cover and you'll have to like shoot over barriers and stuff. You'll need to have all that room you need and the cable kind of gets in the way of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's I that's one of those things I do understand why it is like that, but like because I'm just looking at the other stuff like uh inside out tracking, uh all the the two controllers like I don't know. I much, much like the live service, I just really want to know what Sony's expectations for this one is because you know, anecdotally, I think PSVR. I know they sold like 5 million units, um, so like it did pretty good, and like I think most of the general audience know what the PSVR is. My worry is just that like I don't think they have invested enough to really compete with the other two.
Well, honestly it comes down to library at this point because you're already matching like the specs of a Quest, except the only thing you have that's different is the wire,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
which for all we know could not be needed at all. But we'll see what happens. But I mean, it just comes down to the library.
well, and that's the the thing people again. Obviously, this is early days. You'd assume in the summer they probably talk about this again, but uh, how would you feel if the library did not transfer over? Because right now I am kind of hoping it is. Like I feel that's gonna be way too much of like a kick. That's gonna just kill all their momentum if it's not backwards compatible.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I would love it for to be backwards compatible. Especially because more people. I think feel like more people need to play Astrobot,
Mm-hmm.
but
I
or
think
not even just Astrobot. You play like a Blood and Truth. I thought was a really good game,
yeah. Or what was
and
it?
I played that through the whole thing.
Well, Moss 2 just came out, so like
That's
even
another one too, because like I know that just came out. That's on my list of games to play this year,
Mhm.
but I can't for the life of me pull out my VR headset and plug it in right now.
Oh no, I don't
Cause
blame you. I set mine up the other day just because I was reorganizing like the bedroom, and I'm like, all right, well everything's already a mess. I might as well do this now, and it like took far longer, and like having to it's just the little stuff of like it needing its own separate USB cable and like its own HDMI cable and this other stuff. Like I, it's definitely cumbersome. Um, but I do think it's definitely worth it. Like I've had some amazing experiences on like VR, and it's definitely something I can't recommend enough to like someone if they have the opportunity, even if it's just something as like going to visit your friend's house to try it.
yeah, exactly. And again, I feel like if Sony invests in more exclusives like they did with like Blood and Truth and Astrobot, like I know there's rumors that they're going to bring back PlayStation Home in VR, which I think would be really cool. But
I would love
um,
that.
that would be insane. But I mean, if they get to that territory, and then I don't know, some people really want Half-Life Alex on VR2, which I personally don't think is going to happen, but because Valve isn't really too fond of Sony. But if that did happen, that'd be really good,
Yeah,
and that would really push to like the more casual market.
yeah. Because that's the thing I was gonna say. I find interesting is Sony doesn't have like full exclusives with VR because the one thing I appreciate about the VR market is eventually everything comes everywhere. Like I know there's definitely been certain games that launched on specific hardware, but like after a while every game has been everywhere. But the only person who doesn't do that is PlayStation because you have stuff like Iron Man VR, which I believe is still only on PSVR.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah,
You
so
even have like Dreams and stuff has VR modes and stuff that you can do.
yeah, so my hope would be for VR2 would be for them to kind of just get rid of that and like have it go both ways where it's like, all right, cool, like Moss Book 2 is going to be on PC, but that also means that the PlayStation gets Half-Life Alex because right now it does feel like everybody else is kind of sharing nice and like getting along and this other stuff, and then you have PlayStation just being off by itself, and it does like,
Oh,
yep.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's just like I don't know the exact time, but it does feel like what is it? PlayStation basically gets the scraps. Where again, it's all right, cool. Let's bring it to the Quest. Let's bring it to the Index. Let's focus on bringing it on this other places, and then maybe we'll think about doing like the PlayStation version. Like the PlayStation version always, at least anecdotally, it seems would be the last one they focus on.
Yeah, I mean, in terms, I was gonna say in terms of Moss 2, I'm sure that's gonna come to other platforms eventually because I know Moss 1 is on Quest and Steam and stuff.
Okay, okay.
Um, I think that's just an exclusivity thing. But I mean, like I said with Valve, I they have more of a relationship with Microsoft than Sony, so I would love to see Half-Life Alex. I would love for more people to play Half-Life games because I love Half-Life.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know how much what their sales were on that game specifically on Steam,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, if they were low, then yeah, I'm sure go ahead and throw it on PlayStation VR. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I do agree with you though, because I would love to see backwards compatibility of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sorry. So according to uh, Steam Spy, it has. Sorry, it's surpassed 2 million sales on Steam.
okay, that's not bad then.
Yeah. So.
Because if you're comparing it to like other like PlayStation VR exclusives and stuff, then
Mm,
yeah, it's not too bad.
yeah, exactly. That's um, what was it? I don't think Sony has gone full blown crazy, but like the launch of the PS5, there's Sony has definitely done a lot of pig-headed stuff, and that's my big worry. Is like I can 100% see a world where they're like, nah, we have the new what is it? The new controllers, and we have the new like grips and all the other stuff. So like, no, the games aren't transferring over. I hope not, because I think for me, VR is not as big as it can be, and I think that's just because there are so many barriers in the way right now. So, as much as I would like to say like, oh, cool, this like Iron Man VR is on only on PSVR. It's like right now that's not what the market needs. That game needs to be everywhere as much as possible, and all this other stuff. Like the experience of getting into VR needs to be as seamless as possible. Otherwise, the tech's just not gonna get the development, and that's like what kind of frustrates me is, again, I haven't actually physically used a Quest or the Index or this other stuff, but I still feel like the VR scene has kind of hit this plateau of it just like, okay, we're making the same type of games where, you teleport around or you do this or that. Like I remember the early days of VR and being so impressive like, oh, this is how this game did their traversal system, or like the teleporting around, or like the different ways the game design changed and improved based off this new tech. But now it feels like it's just like, all right, cool. Most VR games now are you're in first person and there's some physics or simulation involved, and you can like throw the little people or knock over the stuff, and like it just feels like VR has hit this plateau, and I really want the next step of VR to just come out swinging and like, no, VR can do even more than what you thought. Like there's more new ways to make and develop games just for the VR market.
Right, and I feel like that peak of, like you said, first person games. I think that kind of peaked with like Boneworks and Half-Life Alyx, but that I think is one specific genre. If you look at other genres, like I know, um, what's that studio? I want to say it's Insomniac. I think they made a VR game where
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
it
they
was
do.
from a third person perspective or something like that. Even Moss is like you're looking down and you're controlling like a character on a 2D plane, or like a 2.5D plane or something like that. But like they gotta experiment more with genres. I mean, obviously for immersion's sakes, first person's gonna be like the best genre you want to do for VR. But I mean, I
Oh,
don't know how far you can go after Alex. I mean, Alex pretty much perfected it because it's got like the physics. It uses the physics engine and like all that stuff.
well, yeah. Well, not even like it not even specifically about it being in first person. Basically, because what was it? I was looking at a game the other day, and I think it was like Tentacular Attack or something, or um, Tentacular. But basically, I think what happened was, um, okay, it's giving me stuff for Dragon Quest. Um,
Yeah, no, I just looked it up too. I was like, oh yeah, it's Dragon Quest.
um, no, but basically, I think like a prime example would be stuff like Job Simulator, where Job Simulator was this big breakout success, and everyone loved it. And it's just like you just interacting in a room. But the problem is a lot of VR games have just kind of defaulted to that, where I can't. I'll see if I can find a thing. But basically, in this game, you play as like this giant kraken, and you're just they give you this little oceanside town, and you can interact with the people. You can pick them up. You can like stick them together. They give you like little glue, little stuff like to interact. To you can be friends with the people. You can do all this other stuff, and it was really cool and it's really unique. Like, and I am interested in playing and trying this game, but the problem is it's very similar to, like I said, to Job Simulator and to Blood and Truth and all this other stuff, where like you are just sitting in a stationary spot and you're interacting with the world around you. And I kind of want to see what else VR has done, because I feel like they've nailed that specific type of game of like just leaving you to interact with a space. But at least from the brief games I've played, a lot of them just break down to feeling like experiences and not like whole specific games.
Yeah, like I said, from a design standpoint for VR stuff, you want to do that first person thing, or else it's just like that's what people go into VR looking for, is like going into a virtual world, right?
Yeah.
Um, there is, I don't remember which. PlayStation experience it was. I played a demo for a VR game that isn't out right now. I don't know. I don't know if it got completely canceled or what. I think it was called like Star Child or something. But what it was like you're in VR and it's basically like a 2.5D Metroidvania game. Like it's basically just a Metroid game.
Okay.
And what would happen is you would play it, but there would be like giant spires and stuff, and they would crawl around like the world that you're moving around in, but they would also sometimes go over your headset.
Oh, okay.
So it would kind of immerse with that. So like honestly, it's you can do more genres with it, but people haven't really been experimenting with it because it's basically a new medium at this point
Well,
because you have to immerse people.
well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying is I hope Sony. I can see Sony being like, nah, buy the new one, do this and that. I'm like, right now, I think Sony needs to just work with everyone. Like, they need to get the tech into as many people's hand as possible, and they need to work with the developers because if they just go, okay, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, I feel like the VR space isn't really gonna evolve and like, grow and like they're not gonna have those breakthroughs because it's like, okay, well, we know how to make this type of game, we know how to make that, and like I do think it is limiting itself just sticking to, again, there's like these specific type of games.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so any last minute thoughts? Like what are your actual thoughts on the? Because again, this was just the first look of it. It looks cool. It's very white. It's very on brand for PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, not only just the controllers, but I feel like the important part is like the haptic feedback, especially in the headset. Because I play VR mainly for immersion stuff, and I feel like that's definitely going to help with the immersion.
Um,
So
give me maybe half a second, just because I forgot to check something. Okay. But yeah. So we'll just have to see. Well, I guess that's the last thing before we go is when do you think it is? Because I constantly flip flop on this where a lot of people have said is like, hey, Sony wouldn't be talking about it in January if they weren't ready to launch this year. So the fact that they're talking about it means they clearly must be close. I feel like with the,
yeah,
no, I just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I feel with the shortage issues for the PS5, I feel like that would be the priority for them. So I feel like Sony's not going to be that hurt if they have to kick it to next year. But
Yeah, and I've been hearing rumblings about like it's still on track for the end of the year. Like I would predict that they can get these out by the holiday,
mhm.
but like you said, I feel like they want to get PS5s out there first, so it'll give them a little bit of room to like push it out to maybe like the first quarter of 2023 or something if they have to.
Exactly, I would not be shocked if they did it because I know, there are certain time periods where like the shortages have gotten better and worse. So like I could see them doing it. I just feel like right now it really makes no, as much as it sucks, like there's no real incentive for them to rush it out right now because again, like we said, Moss is coming out, all the other stuff. Like the VR market is not as explosive as it once was, so I do feel like trying to kind of just meet an arbitrary date of like, all right, cool, which it feels even weird to say, but like this November, the PS5 is gonna be 2 years old, so I don't think they're judging it in terms of like, okay, well, this is gonna happen in year two, in year three, in year four. Like, I do think the whole chip shortage does give them the benefit of going, all right, let's launch this when we're ready. We don't have to meet that Christmas deadline. Like, we'll be okay if we launch this in March.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Christmas deadline. I mean, I don't know what they're planning for holiday aside from God of War, but even God of War, I feel like that's if that's still on track for this year, I feel like that's going to come out in like September or October.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's not even a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So that kind of like, I mean, that's their big holiday game, I guess. But I don't know what else they have up their sleeve unless they're hiding something from us.
Oh yeah, that's a cool one. The annoying part is, especially with E3 being dead, sadly,
Yeah,
that the thing I love and hate about PlayStation is they will not hype this up in any way. We're just gonna wake up one day and then, hey, here's a new game. Like they don't really do the big pomp and circumstance. They just drop info, like, hey, here's this cool info, and then bounce and leave. So
yeah, they'll be like, oh, today we're gonna focus on PlayStation VR. So every hour we're gonna tweet out a new game.
yeah,
That's usually what they do.
yeah, you said that the other day with the when the PS Plus like rumors were happening, and I can't get it out of my head because I'm like, that would be kind of, even circling back to the PlayStation Plus thing. That would be a really banger mood if like they're just like, cool, we got this game, we got this game, we got this game, and like every hour, like, cool, we've got Alex, we've got this, we've got that, we've got that. Like, I feel like that would be a really good way to show PlayStation not being as guarded off and showing like old.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's like an old Nintendo move that they used to do on Twitter. I think that must have been during like the pandemic when they didn't have any presentations. They would just, because I still remember that one morning where it's like, oh hey, look, new Paper Mario is announced and it's coming out in a few months.
Mm.
Like I remember them just tweeting that out of nowhere. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, with the whole trailer, and like I believe they gave you the release date too.
Yeah,
Like it was just like, oh, this is Paper Mario. Here's a new game. It comes out in like 4 weeks.
yeah, I don't know. And Nintendo's weird. I always have that theory with Nintendo where like they already have games that are done. They just haven't released them or announced them yet.
Well, hell, look at the whole issue with Advance Wars.
Yeah, I mean that game's done.
Yeah, and
They
then
just,
someone was playing it, and then they were like, nope. So
yeah, they revoked it. So
yeah, but no,
Nintendo's weird.
yeah, we'll have to see what goes on with PSVR 2. I guess last one. What was it? If PSVR 1 sold 5 million, let's say, yeah, rough. Where do you think the 2 is gonna fall, give or take?
Um, like what's 5 million? 5 million, like as of right now, or is that like is
I
there a specific?
I can double check. I believe that was December, but let me check. A sales number. As of August 16th, 2018. Oh, sorry.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, so it says as of December 31st, 2019, it sold past 5 million, but not over 6. So it definitely looks like
Interesting.
that growth has slowed down.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely think they'll hit over 5 million. I mean, if I had to estimate, it would be just barely under 10 million. Like, I would say like 8 million.
Okay, so kind of doing similar. So about like 3 million or so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, again, it all comes down to marketing too. So
well, that's going to say that's the thing for me is I think it comes down to how well Sony plays with not only others but with themselves. Where if they come out and they say, "Hey, you have to buy new games, you have to buy new controllers, you have to buy new all this other stuff," I don't think it's gonna have that success. The only way it's gonna have that success is if they bring back the PSVR library, and then they go and they make sure whatever's on the Quest, whatever's on the Index, they make sure that those games are also available on PlayStation, even if it's like after a year, after 6 months or whatever. I think the only way VR2 is gonna succeed is as if it has that back catalog. Otherwise, I think I could see it burning out.
yeah, for me personally, I feel like those back catalog games, like we're talking about like Astrobot and
Not even.
was it Blood and Truth and stuff. I
Yep.
feel like because the problem is like they're designed with the PlayStation Move in mind, so I don't know if they might have to go back and patch them or like re-release them somehow.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I don't know how else they would do it, but like yeah, I mean if they don't do the back catalog, at the very least they gotta like make Horizon a launch title or something. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's already a gimme that that's going to be a launch title.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. But yeah, so that will pretty much do it for this episode. Before we go, let's take a look to next month's games, which were for March were Arc System Evolve, Ghost Runner, Team Sonic Racing, and you also got Ghost of Tsushima Legends as a free bonus.
I still haven't played any of those. I would like to play Tsushima Legends, but I'm not big on online stuff.
Yeah, I
That's
played way back when it came out, and you know, it was fine. It was cool, but again, the problem is I don't have. I already have enough. Like I said, live service games. I couldn't commit to getting into a game like that too. I'd have to drop something. So
yeah, and I wasn't too big on Ghost of Tsushima personally, but
mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know how. I would like to give it a try though,
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
But yeah, so that will do it for another episode of the Unofficial PlayStation Plus podcast. But if you want to keep the conversations going and check the daily happenings of the show, be sure to follow us at PS Plus Pod, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to write into the show and have your thoughts read on air, you can email us at pspluspod@gmail.com. Where can people find you, sir? Uh,
You can finally find me mainly on Twitter. My handle is at Speedy99,
mhm,
except it's spelled SPEADY
mhm.
99. That's where you're gonna find most of my stuff. I do want to plug really quickly. I did make a video game.
I was about to
Uh,
say, yeah. Gotta go.
I don't want to talk about it too much because I know we're running out of time. But
No, that's okay. Go
all
for it.
that info is on my Twitter profile. It should be pinned by the time this episode goes live. But yeah, I made a Game Boy game. It's free. If you have a Windows computer, it's free to play. You can donate $1. Uh, download the ROM if you want. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
That's all my stuff is through Twitter, so you can just follow me through there.
cool. And you can follow my personal at Viral Vinny on the personal stuff, where I post fun, random stuff, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot of Kingdom Hearts speculating lately. I've been having
Yeah,
fun.
I could tell.
It's been fun watching people. What was it? Because I had like I had someone the other day explain to me how your brain like basically the same frequencies that your brain emits when you're reaching REM sleep is the same frequencies that your brain reaches right when you're about to die, and explaining how like the quadratum realm and all this other stuff. And I'm like, wow, this makes no sense to
Oh
me.
wow.
I know. I'm like, this makes no sense to me, and I love every second of it. But yeah, at
I mean,
the
I guess that makes sense because Donald and Goofy are in Hades or whatever. They're trying to find Hades.
exactly. So it's been fun
Interesting.
getting into that world again. But yeah, so at Viral Vinny if you want to follow me. But I've been Viral Vinny. They have been Hunter JRs.
Gerace, you're
Gerace!
close. It's all good.
Our lovely guest for this episode. And this has been the Unofficial PlayStation Plus podcast. And until next time, long live play, whenever, wherever, forever.